femboys in general sort of touch on this like sexual taboo for normies, where it's like they don't want to admit they're attracted to them. You know what I mean? You hear the whole like, oh, traps aren't gay, which, by the way, traps are gay. If you like them, you're not straight. Okay?
This happens like once an episode. That's our bumper right there. That is the like market timestamp it. That's our teaser right there.
I thought the bumper was going to be the whole like, yeah, I'd fuck dudes or whatever.
Hey, I would fuck dudes, and traps are gay.
Sharp like an edge of a samurai sword, the mental blade cut through flesh and bone. Though my mind's at peace, the word out of order, missing in the heat, night gets colder. Oh yes, I have to find my path. No less walk on earth, water and fire. The elements compose an anthem. Opens my motors of piranhas and alga. Steel packed tight in micro chip on my arm by the sign of all pro. The ultimate reward is not a war that on with the times and wars with no lords.
Alright, so we are both video and audio. Now we're recording.
We are live.
So we are
Nice.
live.
Let's go.
Well,
So
you know, which is fine because we never actually do like a real intro in any way. Like there's never a plan.
well, I do have
and
two questions for the start, but if you
had questions.
I do have
this is
two
the thing.
questions.
I was so ready to have like I'm like this one, the one I've been waiting for. It's like it was like this one and Azeroth. It's like Indy and Azeroth are the only ones I was like I should really try and make sure it's good. And then I just didn't think of any questions at all aside from the normal ones.
Great.
So you know, I mean, we don't even have like, you know, it's so awkward to do an introduction as well because it's like number one, I figured this out really early on. It's like anyone who we have on, the primary audience already knows who they are, so you never
Yeah.
have to be like, "Yo, tell me about your life's like why would people know you?" And it's like, well, everybody know, you know, there's the
Right,
same
yeah.
47 people listening.
Yeah, there's
Yeah, I think the from the ones that I've listened to, I think the just the cold open works pretty well because like you typically give like a brief rundown of like, hey, we talked, and like, you know what
Yeah,
I
we
mean.
do
That's
like a
recorded
little-
after.
or like we'll do a reference of,
10-minute.
oh yeah, before we started type of
Yeah.
Yeah, we usually like try and riff it out. I mean, and then sometimes it's like really crazy from the start, and I feel like we cut some of that in. Or like V's
Yeah, yeah.
episode, for example, we literally didn't mean to record an episode. We were recording an intro, and then
we
just ended
were
up
gonna
recording-
record with another guest, and then
Yeah,
they
then it
didn't
didn't
show.
work out.
So
And so we were like, well, I guess we have like we'll just leave it recording. I mean, you know, my favorite icebreaker one, I guess, and then V, I'm sure you're much better thought out questions. But what is the origin behind Indigo? Like, where did your moniker come from?
where'd the name come from?
Okay, so when I was making this account, I wanted to do for a while in like 2021. There was this like OX anime Mev Anon playbook where if you started an account and just had OX whatever and an anime profile picture and wrote something crypto related, you could easily nab like 200-300 followers and people would just think you're an alt of somebody. And so
Right.
I kind of just, when I made this account, I was like, all right, the playbook seems to be follow all of the people from, there was like 2 different groups. Follow all of the people that the Femboy Capital account follows.
Mm,
And they'll just sort of assume you're one of them, it seems like. And it worked. I wanted an account where I could just speak a little bit more freely, where I could just sort of, you know, talk about things that are a little bit spicier and sort of share opinions. Originally was going to be in a harsher manner, but I sort of decided that that's not really fun for anybody. It's like fun for the first few tweets where people are like, wow, he's really spitting, you know, but you can't really.
he's not holding anything back.
You don't wanna make,
you're
like,
an
edgelord
old
your
white
entire-
Canadian, you're just
yeah.
like
Right.
going deep.
Yeah, and there's a few remnants of that sort of attitude in my early tweets, but after a while, it sort of becomes not that fun. Not as fun as you would think anyway. And so I ditched that pretty quick. But basically I literally went to Google and I was like, white-haired anime male. I just searched pages and pages and pages until I found this one. And it was, the hair color was supposed to be indigo. I was thinking of names like, what kind of name is good? Like, I can't do red. That's taken. I was gonna do that because of red from Pokemon, or blue, but obviously OX red and OX blue are taken long
Just
since.
right off the bat.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the common
And
ones
so
are.
I was thinking of just different colors. Like maroon was originally going to be one. Um, I'm glad I didn't go with that. And I was like, well, what can I do that has like a nickname that ends with a Y, right? It's like sort of like a common nickname that you have in the States. And so I was like, well, indigo seems good. So I'll color the hair indigo and I'll just name myself OX Indigo. Um, Night shift was on my phone when I was coloring the hair. And so I accidentally made it purple. And that's why my hair is purple and my name is Indigo. And so,
I
yeah, that's
mean,
where it came
I
from. I
was always
just,
assumed there was like some deeper meaning behind the hair and name disconnect, and I'm glad to hear it's not. Like it's just like something totally random. I feel like the 0x femboy anime character meta, I feel like we're finally seeing it lose steam. But I
oh,
mean,
yeah.
genuinely, like there
Yeah.
was, it felt like every other day there was somebody who was just like
Yep.
read the playbook and was like, I know exactly what to do. Like I'm going to just sign up. I'm going to find some reasonably like attractive, slightly effeminate anime profile picture,
Hmm.
and that's it. I mean that's literally what I did. I think that's literally what a lot of people did. I
Which
mean, same thing. I just Google search like white haired kitsune fox boy and just went down until I found one that I was like, this works well enough. Although now people, that answer does give a lot more questions, because then it's like people are going to be like, what, wait, sorry, then whose alt are you? And we're never going to ask you to do that, but if you did, that would be a real bombshell for this interview. That would be really
well,
crazy.
and that's like, there's a point now, especially like people who are doing it, and it's like if you enter and you do the same playbook now, it's like everyone already kind of knows everyone, because if everyone's
Yeah.
an alt, then it's like, oh, we're
Yeah.
back at the
To be
everyone's
honest,
friends already.
when I made this account, I because I knew sort of like what the playbook looks like, right? Like some random OX account with like maybe one tweet and like you can see the same couple mutual followers and it's like, okay, they got them. Uh, I never followed any of them back. I always, if anything, if they look interesting enough, what I do is I have a private list, literally just titled observing. and, and if you look interesting enough, I'll just add you to that list if I don't feel like following you right away because
It's like
I'm not here to
your
just
JV.
follow. Yeah, right. Like I don't
Right.
want to just follow everybody that seems like they kind of might be on the same wavelength, because that's kind of easy to fake. And so yeah, I just add them to that observing list, and I would say out of the probably 25 people that I have on that list, only like 5 of them are active still. So it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I feel like I've done the opposite. Like any time I fall for it every single time. Like that's all it takes. Like I'm just like perfect, followed, not an issue, and then they never tweet again,
Just
or it turns into
boom,
like some weird shill
automatic.
thing. And I'm
Yep.
like, damn, no, this person, they're just like me for real, right? Like I'm like, they love anime. Um, but I mean, not to like forestall these questions, but I think it is funny, when you talk about like figuring out the tone for your account. I remember your account blowing up like early on. I think you got like a retweet, and you had to like pin that message that was like, to everyone
Hmm.
who just followed me off of this, I do want to make it like explicitly clear, like it's not going to be this like smart shit all the time. It's mostly going to be like femboy posting, like it's just like trying to set those
Yeah.
expectations. and
Yep.
and it's so funny because I wonder how many like normies, not to use the term derogatorily, or like totally retail people, like saw like, oh man, that's a really smart tweet, this guy's like a big thinker in the space, I gotta follow this guy, and then
Yeah.
the first thing they click on, they're like, oh damn, I don't know why I'm here.
That's exactly the thing that I was trying to induce for those that it would be induced in. I didn't want, and I still don't want, but it's sort of inevitable at this point. Which is why I still have on my banner when Tuba said you are one of the best gay posters on this site. I screenshot that and I put it on my banner right above the follow button. So it's like you can't really
You
say,
know what you're getting into.
at
Yeah.
least to some degree. At least to some degree, yeah. The tweet that I had it pinned for a long time until I came up with my current tweet that's pinned. That was definitely like a sort of a not not really defense mechanism, but like vibe management
Yeah, yeah,
technique,
yeah.
because I definitely want to manage expectations. At least I wanted to then, because I don't want people. I don't care what the fuck you think, dude. So I don't want you on my replies like, "What the fuck is this?
Yeah,
What
for
do you
sure.
think it is, man?" Like I tweeted it, like
Yeah. It's like
figure it out.
a filter. a
Yeah,
preemptive.
yeah, yeah. You're
Yeah.
Yeah.
just getting out the layer of like, yeah. I mean, but I'm sure you get it. I mean, I'm sure there is still someone who follows you who's just like, man, I don't know what this shit is in my feed. Like, why do I keep seeing it? I thought I was following for like, I mean, to be honest, it's like I'm sure there is some, not calling out any specific weirdos, but I'm sure there are weirdos who are just like, I thought I was following Vitalik's alt, and all I'm seeing is like his horny posting.
Yeah. Yeah, to be honest, it confounds me that I have more than 500 followers probably. So I have to imagine there's probably thousands of people that are thinking that, like, and it's all Inverse Bra's fault, basically.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
he engineered the Vitalik meme. He retweeted the shit out of me. He blew my account up early. Um, initially, I remember there was a long time where I was at like 75 followers, and I was kind of just talking into the void, maybe a couple likes here and there. Um, but then like the speculation over whose alt I was started happening.
For sure.
And then people, I think early on it was Tuba that said something about it, and naturally people have a fairly parasocial relationship, I think, with Tuba, because Tuba plays the like sort of smart asshole role pretty well,
Mm-hmm,
you
mm-hmm.
know, and so that mention brought me from like 75 to like 250 followers like immediately. And then I think somewhere along the line, Inverse Bra like found my account. He's addicted to femboys, right? So,
Yeah, I mean, when that, like, when the dark eye of the inverse brother, like Sauron style, settled over like the femboy
Oh
Meave
God.
community, and like just like I feel like there was just like months there where like, yeah, I got like 2 retweets, and I was like, I'm not saying anything even remote. Like, it was just like it felt like the attention from above had just like settled on our little weird niche community,
right.
and you were just getting exposed. Like, I made like a joke, like just like an innocuous joke about like being an idiot and like my father-in-law saying that crypto is fake, and I got all these like serious replies from people being like, your father-in-law doesn't understand the future of finance, and like you are actually, and I was
Yeah.
like, like this is not the intended audience for this. And yeah, so I
Yep.
feel like we got our, definitely like our little meta community got blown up just due to the inverse bra like sudden fascination with like thigh highs.
Yeah, and there's another aspect too. It's not just the retail normie. It's also somehow I have fooled basically all of Paradigm's research arm into following me. And that's a strange one, and a lot of the Flashbots team too, which I appreciate. I love those guys. I think they do great work. I think Paradigm is a fantastic example for what a VC should look like in the space. I have a lot of respect for their research arm. Um, but man, is it weird having all of those people following me, knowing that most of my content is not like talking about like Ethereum and roll ups
Right.
and technical shit. It's mostly just shit posts. And so there are some times where I kind of think a little bit too much about the audience, but for the most part, I try to just let it rip.
Yeah, no, that's honestly the way to do it. And I feel like I was talking with it might have been Miyuki the other day, but talking about like crypto conferences. Um, like when you see like CT talking about going to crypto conferences
Hmm.
nowadays, it's like no one wants to actually go to the conference because it's people shilling all sorts of
Right. It's more
ridiculous
for the
stuff. They just
party.
want to go and hang. Yeah, they want to go and hang
Yeah.
with friends. So, and that's kind of like with the audience thing.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
people following for like thinking they're gonna have the crypto smart takes, and it's like
Yeah.
not.
They're just
I
getting
feel like I would have
bombarded with
been.
this Stolfo.
Well, yeah, you would have been. I feel like I would have been more successful if I had never listened to anybody on Twitter. Like Twitter is strictly just for like vibes and shit posting,
Right.
and just yeah, the same thing with conferences. Like it's so funny every time someone's like, "Are you going to be there?" I'm like, I don't know. Like maybe if I want to like see somebody, I can't think about any like real value I'm going to derive from it. You know what I mean? It's like the
Yeah.
same thing. Like if I follow really smart people on Twitter, I'm like, well, they're just like really smart. I'm not very smart, so like I can't even parse what they're saying. Like I would much rather just follow somebody like arbitrarily ranking their favorite like beverages, or like which juice is the best juice.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing. There's a bit of an imposter syndrome going on there too, because like I kind of am not that smart, and so I feel like a lot of the people that like when you write a more, I guess, when you write an opinion out on a more technical topic, you tend to attract some kinds of followers that probably, I assume anyway, they might not. I'm passing judgment on them prematurely, but I assume they expect a certain level of like intellect from me, and it just ain't there, And so, yeah, there's a little bit of an odd feeling, but definitely, I know what you mean for sure with that because, uh, yeah, when you talk about those topics, I feel like people sort of want more of that, and they sort of like the
Yeah.
thread war and the Substack war, all those memes. It's like I'm not ever doing that.
Yeah, I mean, the speed with which I gave up trying to write consistently, just because then people were asking what I was going to write about next. I'm like, man, I don't know. I wrote just enough to like get into like the group chat or whatever. I don't need to
Yeah.
do this shit anymore. It's
Yeah.
Plus,
not worth
God
it.
forbid that you write something that someone disagrees with, or
Oh
that's
my
like
god.
contentious or not a settled thing. That there's like some chance that you're like predicting the future, maybe, and you're saying you think this is how it's going to go. Man, people don't like that. They want you to agree with them, and they don't want to read anything about a difference
Yeah,
in opinion.
Yeah. No
yeah. I feel
contrarian
like
stuff.
I made the mistake of referencing like the XRP army on one episode here, and I definitely got like DMs of people being like, you fucking don't understand." And it's like,
Yeah.
this
Yep.
is our this is the worst legal thing that's ever happened, and it's gonna flip everything, and it's gonna go to 5. And I was like, I cannot tell you how much I don't care.
Oh
Like
Yeah.
I don't care at all.
This gets into
Yeah.
like cult mentality and shit, and it's like,
Yeah,
stop idolizing people. Stop. Like we don't. We need more critical thinking
Yeah.
from people. I feel like it's lacking a lot of the time.
Yeah. I agree.
I guess then if you're not finally gonna come clean and like announce that you're Vitalik's alt, then like what with as much as you're
Disappointment.
like willing to share, like what was your like path to get to like crypto and like to crypto Twitter? Like, where where was your like origin story?
So I I discovered Bitcoin pretty
You discovered
early.
big. I knew it. You're Satoshi Nakamoto. I
Yeah.
called it.
Yep.
I've been on
You've
it
been
since.
right the whole time.
Yeah.
Stop
I'm
the
actually gonna come
episodes.
out. I am both Satoshi and Vitalik.
Sharp like an edge of a samurai sword, the man.
I
So I
always
hope,
thought the same. Yep.
yeah.
Sorry,
Which, by the way,
keep
is like a
going.
brief side note. I love the Vitalik meme because it's like it's funny, but it's like perfectly harmless. It's like one of those things where it's like I would assume everybody's laughing along with me and Inverse Bra when people like call me Vitalik because like there's nothing I can gain from that, right? Like if I was ever to be like,
Right.
hey, I'm actually like DM somebody like, hey, I'm actually the guy, right? So can you send me like 100 ETH or something? I feel like they would just be like, fuck off, dude. So I like it. It's a very harmless meme. It's very fun. But so I discovered Bitcoin at a pretty young age. I don't remember how actually. To me, it's sort of something that just as far back as I can remember, it just popped into my life. Um, I don't remember where I read about it. There's a real chance that it was 4chan um, on the technology board, but
What a
I don't
great
actually remember.
chaotic way into crypto.
Yeah, yeah. I had a lot of introductions chaotically to various things that have impacted my life very meaningfully from 4chan. Actually, like if I look back, there's probably 4 or 5 things that I could say came from the internet that like changed the direction of my life. Um, but yeah, so I discovered Bitcoin at a young age. I didn't really discover crypto Twitter until about I don't know 2019. As weird as that might sound, I was definitely on like Bitcoin Twitter. Like I
Mhm,
was I
mhm.
was following the maxis. You know what I mean? I was watching the narratives. Um, I listened to a lot of Andreas Antonopoulos, who
Okay, yeah.
is and still remains one of my favorite people. In the space. I have a lot of respect for him and the work that he's done over the years. But at one point, yeah, I guess you could say I was a Bitcoin maxi for a few years there. Not like what you see today, of course. I don't know what the fuck these things are that are like flooding people's timelines. These people, but I was definitely sort of a Bitcoin maxi. It wasn't really until DeFi that I discovered crypto Twitter, and then I also sort of fell very in love with Ethereum. I used to think it was just bullshit. I didn't think it would work that well. I thought that, I thought that their scalability wasn't great, and I thought that, I thought the classic thing, right, where it's like anything Ethereum does well, Bitcoin's just going to do. which
Sure.
has thus far turned out to be completely false. And none of that has ever happened, except for maybe some quote unquote side chains that try to, they're EVM compatible. But yeah, so that's my story. It's nothing too exciting. I discovered it mad early, slept on it for a little bit. I grew up poor, so I didn't really have any money to like buy it or anything. Kept up with the Bitcoin community for ideological reasons. And then, yeah, discovered DeFi, and then led me to fall in love with Ethereum.
And here
I
we
mean,
are.
okay, I'm just gonna say, for someone who's like, that origin story sounds very convenient. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna feed the Vitalik pills at all.
Convenience.
I'm just,
Jeez.
it's nice to have a camera because you can kind of like look side-eyed towards the
Just
camera
a
a little
little.
bit.
Yeah,
Like,
you're like right in it.
yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of people definitely of like the 4chan generation and like early internet generation, I feel like got connected to Bitcoin early,
Yeah.
and then took like a long time to like get to the actual application or potential of crypto as a whole. Because I definitely remember when, not to like date myself, but when I was about to graduate high school, and Bitcoin, like the first person I knew was doing like a Bitcoin miner. I remember like I had no thought of the application past that. I had
Right.
only the thought that like, oh my gosh, there's this like internet thing and everyone on 4chan is like really excited about it or thinks it's terrible. And so, yeah, it just captivated the interest. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a not too uncommon origin story.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm very basic.
Yeah, that's
I
yeah,
mean,
that's the flip side, the extension of the like nobody knows what they're doing and everybody's basic. That's
yeah, right.
Yeah.
We can't all be Lawrence. You know what I mean? We can't all be like in
Well,
the
if we're talking
lab
about people that
when
don't
the
know what
shit
they're
was
doing.
dropped. Oh man.
Oh man. Oh boy.
I'm just kidding. I love Lawrence.
Yeah.
We all love Lawrence. I want to make that very clear. We all love Lawrence.
Yes,
with
we
all our
do.
tab.
Yeah. So I
Well,
had
so then,
two.
okay.
Oh, I
Yeah,
was gonna
go.
say, so I had two kind of silly questions, but they're important. They're important ones to me. So you've said it on Twitter. I want to confirm the purple hair is coming back at the merge.
Yeah, as soon as the merge happens, so in about like 5 years, as soon as the merge happens, I'm swapping back to the normal profile picture. Yep.
Okay, it's just convenient. So the reason I ask is, I have a sister who's getting married around the time of the merge,
Very
and
bizarre coincidence.
one of her conditions for the wedding, she's like, I'm not going to be a bridezilla. Can you not have the purple hair? Because I did
Oh my
dye my
God.
hair purple. So
Wow.
she gets married. The merge happens. I'm gonna go back to purple too. It's just a weird coincidence of.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
I'm gonna hold you to it.
Yeah,
'Cause
definitely. Absolutely. Yeah, we have that in
yeah.
common. That's cool.
And then, well, the other question, Kits, I'm gonna put you on the spot for this one. Would you care to ask Indy about the merch idea you told me?
Well, okay, so, and I want you to hear me out, and I want you to
Okay.
really, just we're in crypto, open minds,
Mine is
open
open.
hearts, we're not judgmental.
Right.
It's kind of a two-pronged thing in your case, but number one, kind of a trying to think of the best way to say it, kind of like a femboy calendar of our guests. You would have to provide your own, like thigh high photos. But and then, separately, we get a lot of requests. Body pillow. I'm thinking like, full size, true to life, beautifully illustrated. Just, I forget the Japanese word because like I'm a
I forgot it too.
Ducky. It starts with a.
It was a
Ducky.
trap, V, and you fell for it easily. I
Weeb.
just walked right into it.
Weeb.
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely shameful. Well, I guess that is kind of like a good joke question that then leads into like a real question. It's like it feels like of most people that we've talked to, or even more so than a lot of people we talked to, you command quite like a audience of, respectfully, simps. Like, what do you think? Like, it putting aside like it might be the Vitalik thing or the inverse broad attention, like why do you think people are so like captivated by you or like what you say and feel like even this, I think parasocial is the right term,
Mhm.
but
yeah,
I don't think
for
people have the
sure.
same parasocial relationship with like Suzuha or Miyuki or Tuba even, right? Like you have like this, people feel very entitled to be very familiar with you and feel like very parasocially attached. And I'm like no different, right? Like our first interactions were definitely like an extension of my like parasocial relationship with you, right? But why do you think it's something like different? Like what do you do? Like why do people feel this like creepy and terrifying internet attachment to you?
Level of a connection. Yeah.
Wow, that's a great question. Yeah, I've thought about it before, and I really don't know quite what it is. And you're not the first person who said to me like, "Wow, people feel very comfortable with being familiar with you,"
Yeah.
and like people do say like some pretty like wild out of pocket things. And I guess maybe it's because I don't take it like the wrong way, or I don't take offense to it. I guess. Yeah, I don't know where that comes from. I appreciate that everybody feels comfortable talking to me. Um, but I think that, yeah, I don't know. Parasocial relationships are very interesting, and I think that I guess maybe just the way that I present myself, maybe just the way that I carry myself. But I would have to say, because of the way that I handle my presence on on Twitter and just in the community generally, I do it
Yeah.
very much like in a. I'm very relaxed, right? Like I'm very relaxed when I'm talking about things. Not often that I worry about the perception of what I'm saying, unless I'm worried about sounding stupid, unintentionally. Um, so yeah, I don't know. The relaxed nature of which I go about posting kind of leads me to not really know exactly what elements people feel most comfortable with.
I have to wonder a little bit, like because we're in an environment of anonymity, the anon as the culture. There's
Hmm.
an inherent sense of, because people are anonymous, there's not necessarily fear from consequences.
Yeah.
Then there's perhaps an inherent perception of well, if this person's anonymous, they're probably going to be more honest, and I can, they're more willing to talk about because there's nothing to lose on their end. So
Yeah.
I feel like that colors everyone's initial perception of how interacting with an anon will look like.
Yeah, that's true. Which is an interesting thing because I sort of sometimes look at it the other way, which is this person is anonymous. There is no incentive to be honest, and there is everything to gain from lying. Um,
Good
which
counterplay.
Well,
is
and that's like crypto, right? That's like even like the
yeah,
foundational technology was all to kind of right like solve that. And I think, that's a very natural evolution. If things are inherently like trustless and you kind of you're living in the dark forest, right?
yeah,
You're, that applies even to anons. Um, Although, I do feel like there is a tiered thing and certainly different from like the truly anonymous message boards of like the past, right? Like
hmm
4chan, there's no continuity between, you know, poster to poster or whatever.
you can't tell
But
who your
this,
mutuals are on
Yeah,
4chan
there's
for
no
sure.
connection.
exactly, right? And now you have like a defined visual identity, you have a name, you have kind
Yeah,
of like a brand. And I feel like it is just like it's so closely tied to, well, I guess this next generation, like Zoomers have that very much with Twitch streamers, right? Like
hmm
they have a very defined parasocial relationship looking at someone's real life, their non-anonymous life. And then
yeah,
there is like the weird in between where it's like you're not just a random string of characters, you are a purple-haired anime boy with a name that someone can recognize, and so that people feel like just enough of that in between connection to you as a quote unquote person that they feel like they actually know you.
yeah, yeah. And that I would say, as far as how I do carry myself, that is something that I've sought to preserve. Because and I made a tweet about this, the you need to be parasocial maxing tweet. I
Yeah.
made it like last week. That partly comes from the concern that like it's a joke tweet obviously, but there's a little bit of anxiety that fueled that tweet. And it's not that I feel it all the time, but it is sort of one of these things where it's like maintaining a parasocial relationship for me is beneficial because they do make for fun interactions, but people romanticize the hell out of people that they don't quite know fully.
Completely.
And it's the same thing with Twitch streamers, right? You see what they put on screen, you don't know what they're like off screen. You don't know, you feel like you know how they would act in person, but that's not often the way that it works. And so I try to not let glimpses behind the screen happen very often, which coming on this podcast is completely antithetical to that, right? Because I am talking. People are going to be able to get much more of my tone than they've ever had before. This is, previously people had only heard like a 30-second clip that has since been deleted. Um, and my opinions and the way that I think and talk. So this is a lot more than I had ever previously anticipated showing. But I think, yeah, with parasocial relationships, it's fun, but also there is this concern of like, and I've had this happen unfortunately before, where somebody gets closer to you, or they think they want to get closer to you because they
Mm-hmm.
have this such a romanticized idea of who you are, where you sort of think like, okay, this person, they want to be a friend, and it ends up not. You don't click quite the way you think you might, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's like, the real fear, the anxiety part is whether it's not it's rooted in reality is neither here nor there, but the concern, the fear is that they're going to get to know me and they're not going to like me, right?
Or you're gonna let them down
Yeah.
in a way. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm just going to I'm so romanticized. There's no way I can live up to these expectations. By the time they get to know me, it's over for me. Right? And so there is that, and that's kind of
Yeah.
why my account has sort of remained pretty much the same since inception.
I was gonna say, just that clip that you referenced, like I feel like really set people off. Like I feel like
Yeah.
the comments were, do you want to talk about out of pocket? I mean,
Yeah.
but the same thing when I chose to voice docs or when V chose to voice docs, right? Or anyone else that we've had on the show, like when um Etheria came on the show, like we got like there were just like a bunch of like totally like random people being like, your voice is so beautiful, like I love your
Yeah.
voice, like it's
Yeah.
creepy. And it's like it is a little bit like, okay, I need to keep that at arm's length. But I guess there is also, it seems like, a freedom to to reference Lawrence again, like my man exists fully doxxed and I
Yeah.
would say overshares in a great way, like his disgusting like bean fixation, or like literally his physical location to like meet up with people and get drinks. And it kind of seems like, yeah, the two ways to stay safe are either to like bridge it off completely and exist as this online entity, or be like,
Hmm.
Actually, this is the entirety of who I am, warts and
Yep.
all." And I think that's like very terrifying. And I think like opens you up in ways that you don't want to. But yeah, I don't know, I think it's a hard line to kind of straddle, right? And
Yeah.
certainly you never want to close it off completely, because then it feels like, well, all of these connections I made could just go away because people will no longer feel like they have access to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then it's also just performance art at that point. Like, if you're not being authentic to, a meaningful degree, you're kind of just tweeting things for the sake of tweeting. You're just engaging with the community, I guess, for, I don't know, clout or whatever, and it's all relatively meaningless. I mean, I definitely, and tons of respect to Lawrence for, like, as far as I'm aware, there's like one thing only that Lawrence won't shitpost about, and it's because it's a legal matter, right? And like,
Right.
and the rest is like freely, no fucks given. So definitely, I totally respect that sort of free outlook. um I think that is probably something I would never do. I like being able to have this sort of thing that I can manage, almost like as an experience. Like Indy's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like as much an experience, I would imagine, or at least I think, as much an experience as he is like a person, or as I am, not to break the fourth wall, as I am as a person. Um,
Well, see,
so yeah,
even keeping that like that type of mentality, the concern you talked about, like people might get too close and then their perception might be shattered.
right,
I've had people come, uh, like it's been briefly mentioned on the podcast, but like a concern of this entity, in your case, like Indigo, becomes kind of its own thing, and you feel like you have to live up to its maybe that's not a concern of yours, but
Yeah.
like you have to live up to the expectations of who this persona now is. And I feel like
yeah,
sometimes people struggle with that too. Crap, I'm perceived as this smart Vitalik alt. Like, what about
yeah, and that's where I drop in occasionally. Just a couple of, you have to be humble, right? You have to be humble, and I'm not big on self-deprecation, but just the tiniest amount in your tweets,
Yeah,
I
you
feel
just
like
season that in there a little bit.
just a little bit, just a pinch, just to kind of manage expectations. Like, hey, I'm not, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like, I think just yesterday I made a tweet about like, I have no idea what I'm saying. I get the big words from people and I sprinkle them into tweets here and there to seem smart.
Yeah, you just
And
get
I
to play
think
bingo. with
Yeah,
buzzwords. You just get to be like, you know what? I've definitely seen people talking about that this week. I'm just
yeah,
gonna toss them in there.
exactly. Something ZK data scaling,
Yeah,
MEP,
ZK,
and
ZK plus. Yeah,
Ride
yeah,
the
exactly.
wave. Yeah.
yeah. Which obviously, it's not perfectly representative of what happens. Like I do love this shit. And I love reading about it. I'm obviously very much, uh, as much in it for the tech, so to speak, as I am to make money. Um, but yeah, I think it's just a matter of managing expectations. I'm not worried about living up to indie. I am just trying to maintain, basically. Just trying
Hmm.
to keep everything, keep the vibe positive, keep the vibe perfectly balanced.
I think this weird thing kind of happens in like a bear market or a decline or whatever, where when people start having more time on their hands and all of the crowd starts to thin a little bit and it gets into these smaller and smaller groups, like people tend to start feeling much more free to like share things about themselves, right? Like I feel like in the last few months, I've seen people much more willing to like I don't know, like
Docs.
space docs or like
Yeah.
jump on a call or like, I have now done things through my like day crypto, like day job work with people on crypto Twitter. And like we've both been on camera together, which has been like great. But it also definitely seems like it feels like the all-time volume of people has to be low if everybody is like, well, I guess I now feel comfortable enough or there's not enough going on or whatever
Mhm.
that I can kind of open the door to my interior world and
Yeah.
and to the real me a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I've really thought too much about, for lack of a better term, the liquidity of opinions or like personas floating around, because it's kind of like that, right? Like when there's less people around, I know what you're saying. Like people's presentations of themselves gets a little bit more volatile. I don't know really why that is. Like maybe there's just more attention or something. For me personally, when I feel like there's not a whole lot going on, I am a little bit less inclined to tweet, uh,
Sure.
because I never want to say something for the sake of saying something, because that's when you know you've entered your flop era. Like so. I do agree though. I feel like it's been a little bit crazier, but I guess maybe it's like there's like camaraderie there. Like everybody got blown up and we survived. We're all here, so let's relax a little bit, get a little bit more comfortable. I know you've survived this crazy experience and this total meltdown of the market, and you're here alongside me. So maybe it's a little bit more of a relaxed environment because of that.
Yeah, and you have the type of control mechanisms too. You have people who are like, okay, we're in a bull market, attention's picking up. I'm gonna lock my account, no more
Yeah.
new, because things are gonna get too out of hand. Or trying to. I feel like maintain the narrative is perhaps a sinister way of phrasing it, but like keeping things in check, like not
Mhm.
letting things get too out of hand.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's always one of those things like what people choose to focus on in those times. Like, I feel like builders will keep building, but like, I don't know, shit posting like becomes then the dominant meta because you got nothing else going on, or drama. I feel like just like
Yeah,
general
that
like
too.
drama ends up picking up like so crazy. And I feel like there's been like a unhealthy amount of drama recently, which in like full honesty, like I really enjoy because like I'm like a messy bitch, right? Like I enjoy watching people fight on the internet because I think it's really funny because you can like literally just go outside and touch grass and it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say I feel like the only time I've seen you ever engage with something like that was like what was it this it was like Steven Deal's fanboys or whatever. I saw you like going into the trenches with them. But I wondered like in kind of like a bigger way, like do you in your like day-to-day life, are you like kind of very like openly about your involvement in crypto? Like do you share it with the people around you or are you much more like keep it locked down, that's only for your internet persona?
Um, so my immediate family knows, because I've always kind of been like around technology, interested in technology. I've always kind of every family's got like the computer guy, so to
Sure.
speak, and so that was always me. And so when I discovered, like I said, I discovered Bitcoin, and I was in love with it for ideological reasons, and I still am. By the way, I know I like on my Twitter, I like joke about it a little bit, and I say that I have concerns about the security budget, which I do. You should be worried. Um, I say all these things about it. I still love Bitcoin, love the shit out of it. I think it's great. but because I discovered it at a young age and for ideological reasons, so obviously I didn't know how to keep my fucking mouth shut. Um, so I definitely all my family all knows that I'm involved. Outside of that though, I don't talk about it. I don't like to talk about it anyway. There's some times where, if I'm hanging out with a certain friend group, maybe somebody new will bring up something about crypto and I'll bite my tongue. They're talking about like XRP or Doge or whatever. I won't say anything, but if somebody brings up something more technical, maybe I'll get involved. But for the most part,
Yeah.
I don't like to talk about it really. I don't like to really share with it. I haven't had much. I've never had anything bad happen from it, but there's really not much good, right? There's nothing really to gain from talking about crypto in real life. I'm not here to
Yeah.
evangelize to people.
It's a really, so I mean, it's like, you mention it in like a, I don't know, like a bar or an Uber or like to someone
Yeah.
random, and then the next thing you know, they're showing you their, a
Yep.
trust wallet filled with like a million scam coins, and you're like,
I
I'm not going to
did.
talk about this.
I did one time. I was the guy in the Uber that brought it up, and I've never. I was riding in an Uber back home, and I was shit faced coming home from the bar, and man, this poor fuck. I grilled him for like 30 minutes, just rambling and passionately talking about like the potential impact and the importance of crypto, and just. I woke up the next day and I was like, "Damn, dude, I was that guy."
You were
Um,
just screaming, wasted about, like, you don't understand its sovereignty.
yeah,
You own your money, and the guy's
Self
like,
yeah.
custody.
please
I
get the
d-
fuck out of my Honda Civic.
Yeah,
Please,
exactly.
God.
Exactly. You hear the tires skirt as he fucking leaves once he drops you off. Yeah, it's I and another thing, I think the own your thing meme, the ownership meme, that is like the worst angle to come at people
Yeah.
with from crypto. Like I think it was Mark Andreessen once said, what was it, read, write, own for Web3? I think it was him that said that. What a terrible meme.
Yeah.
What a terrible like
Yeah.
what who gives a fuck about owning something, you know? Like I get the angle, right? And I understand it. But to go to like for lack of a better term and normie and like, hey, you can own this thing. They're like, okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Like
What's
I
the
don't
actual
care.
benefit? Like,
that doesn't mean
Yeah.
anything. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's
there's no context for which that matters to people, I feel like.
You used the term evangelizing a minute ago, and I, not ever to try and I like crypto evangelist is like the cringiest term right in the world.
Right.
Like you see that in a LinkedIn bio, and it's just a block right away, right? It's like works as
Yeah.
blockchain crypto evangelist, blocked. You're done. I'm not connecting. But I guess one of the things we're always really curious about is like, where do you fall on like the spectrum of optimism, like, or of how, saying we're in it for the tech, and you
Mhm.
said you were, is like kind of sometimes a dirty term, but do you fall kind of on the side of like the optimistic, like crypto will solve this, that, the other, like this is a positive, net positive for our future? Like how far do you kind of go down the idealist rabbit hole?
I would say pretty far. I would say I'm definitely a very optimistic person in general. I would say that definitely extends to crypto as well. Um, I don't think it's going to just solve all of the world's problems, and I don't think you're going to be able to like permanently get rid of like decentral or centralization and like all things. I think decentralize all the things is a very stupid goal. I think it's infeasible and it's also ineffective. I think very highly ineffective. But I would say I'm pretty damn optimistic. Like whenever like some regulations come down, people kind of worry, and it's like the hot topic of the timeline is to talk about like, oh, you know the Brit bongs are gonna regulate crypto so hard, you
Sure.
know what I mean, or they're banning such and such. Well, I mean, the beauty of it is that the system is sovereign. It is its own thing, right? Like nation states can ban it, they can do whatever they'd like, but it will stay running, especially once it moves to proof of stake, where there's all kinds of ways to obscure that you're running a node and just you can have this decentralized system that is like perfectly hidden and still exists on its own. Um, I think just for the reason that it feels like Pandora's box has been opened, I'm pretty optimistic about that. Like I feel like it can't be stopped at this point. I think there's a lot of things for a lot of different reasons that I feel pretty optimistic about. And a lot of it actually, people would say this is maybe dystopian, but I think a lot of it comes from the fact that people will never stop gambling.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
so you can use that in a lot of different ways to incentivize different outcomes and different behaviors. And I think that the more connected the world gets, like I always imagine someone in like some very shoddy like emerging country that doesn't have like maybe lives in like not a very big home, right? Like very small, very poor, someone that's in poverty. And like I can imagine, like if you think about Twitch, right? People can watch Twitch and they can engage with the audience and they can live in this sort of, I don't want to say metaverse because the term is puke worthy nowadays, but they live in this experience with their peers. This parasocial thing is like their world.
Yeah.
Um, and people will pay money to further immerse themselves in that. I think that the more accessible the technology becomes, and the more like the cheaper it is to transact on these networks, and the more there is ways to hyper financialize everything, for better or for worse. I think that more and more people are just going to get involved, and I think there will sort of be a wealth transfer to some degree, where you'll always have those people that come from absolutely nothing, right? That have that opportunity to make it big or to make a shitload of money in crypto. And I think that just for that reason alone, it's never going away. But you can harness like, you know, protocol fees or whatever from that sort of behavior to fund public goods and other things, right? Sort of similar to the lottery. Uh, and so I think a lot of good can be done with that. And then obviously there's tons of other reasons to be optimistic as well. But I think a lot of it's going to come from hyper gambling.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it's been said a lot, but like Bitcoin being positioned as a speculative asset was like the Trojan horse to get people to care, right? Because like people
Yeah.
love to speculate, like people
Hmm.
will always love to gamble. And if you make it, you know, right or wrong with this narrative that, oh, this is, you know, this is your ticket, this is your like Steinbeck embarrassed millionaire moment, right? Like then it will always attract new entrants, right? And I
Yeah.
think the only problem, you know, there is like we are burning through those new entrants faster than we can convert them, right? Like we are
Yeah.
churning these motherfuckers in the meat grinder and just like turning them into, you know, the smaller and smaller and smaller sausage that actually survives. Like just like you got to imagine how many tens of thousands of people are just getting like burned, and then that money is going to like, you know, tornadoed out to like a
Yep.
scammer, and then it's done and it doesn't re-enter. But yeah, like the idea of using protocol fees or generated things for the public good is like super, I think super intuitive and super obvious, right? Like, you know, everyone was joking about the lottery recently, like congratulations to the IRS for like winning the lottery or whatever. But like
Right.
in theory, that system is like that money goes back into
Right.
taxes,
That
or
that
in,
could be a great system. Should be.
yeah, in this case, it's, you know, used to like fund military bases across the world or whatever.
Right. But you know, you could build that, like imagine a global version of that where everybody participates and you can have it so that it's trustlessly settled, trustlessly randomized, whoever the winner is. And the fees that generate goes some pot that everybody can like quadratically vote for different things that they want to
Yeah,
fund,
right.
you
The
know?
beautiful global like well-being DAO gets to decide where
Yeah.
we allocate those funds.
Yeah.
It's all
That's a
just
nice
a
future. I like
massive
that future.
game theory, which is a sharp
Yeah, right.
contrast from yeah, it's gonna get worse and we're all gonna die. You
Wow.
know?
Oh,
I
To
love
be fair, I think I can do a better Kitsune
your
impression.
greatest.
But
That's not at all how I said that. Okay, I was literally just about to compliment you on your like hidden power of being able to like drop the octave suddenly, and then you
and
turn
then
it
I do
around
that.
and do like the soy voice for me.
oh man. That really caught me
It's
off guard. I wasn't ready for that one.
it's hit or miss. Sorry,
I gotta
yeah,
actually
I have fun with it. So
I'm gonna take a sip of my drink actually real quick after that.
and here we are in this more
And
close
like
setting.
absolutely like true to form, completely forgot what we were talking about before we relocated.
Oh,
V hit us with a surprising voice.
Okay, well,
a
the V
surprising one
super,
and then a crappy one. Sorry.
it's not V, I'm sure it was a fine impression. The resonant, beautiful tones that I hear inside my own head when I speak don't sound like that.
So,
But if that's how I sound to you, that's how I sound to you. And my like crippling insecurity has now just come back in full
I
force.
mean,
We're
oh,
gonna just like in post bring my voice like all the way down.
oh, I
Yeah.
don't. I'm like, should I
So
say something
Indy, how
like,
are you doing? This is
do
my
I say how
normal
you
voice.
sound like?
That's not how I sound like. This
That's
is
not.
so unbelievable.
That's
This is
kinda.
like you put up the like
It's pretty close.
top 10 anime betrayals like right there.
Oh
It's kind of
man,
it's getting there. It's kind of
yeah.
close.
Yeah, I mean, eventually the master plan is that I just stop being on this entirely and V just does both of us.
And I
Yeah,
just
just like
And
Jamie
completely take
Foxx
over
style.
and,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just like Jamie Foxx
Yeah.
can just like imitate anybody. Have you ever heard him
The
before? It's so good,
Oh
man.
yeah.
the Jamie Foxx Terrence Howard is my favorite impression
Yeah.
I've ever heard in my life.
hmm
I had
He
that.
did
Oh, go ahead.
he did Willem Dafoe's Goblin when Green Goblin when they were shooting for No Way Home, I think the latest Spider-Man movie. He did an impression of Willem Dafoe and holy shit, man, it was good.
Yeah.
Willem Dafoe seems like one of those impressions that if you like nail it, like people are gonna go fucking crazy. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my god, it's like that or like a good Christopher Walken.
Yep.
So like V, if you have any other like good impressions, you
Well,
wanna
I
pull
mean,
out.
see, I can't do like actor. Like most of mine, and I think we talked about it in my episode was like stupid internet cartoons like Homestar Runner and
I mean, yeah, you can do
those were my
Meatwad from
jam.
like Aqua Team Hunger Force.
Hit us with the voice that you do in private that no one's ever heard before.
That no one's ever
Who's
heard
who's
before.
the interviewer becomes the
Oh,
interviewee?
I don't have a. What do I do in
Yes, you
private?
do. I know you do because I can do. I hesitate to say this because I can do some like one accent, right? And I got a couple that I can fuck around with, and I only do them when I'm alone. So I know for a fact you got something.
Yeah, everybody has those. I'm constantly walking around talking to myself in like a totally bizarre out there voice.
Going goblin mode.
Yeah, I'm a real goblin mode type.
One that I only use when I mean sometimes I'll just I don't know.
Let her rip. She's nervous. Let her rip.
Well, it's one that I would do around other people. It's like just sometimes I'm like in a frustrated mood and I slip into like a strong bad type voice like
You do
okay,
it.
my God, this is so stupid.
Wow.
It is
that was
so wild to do that voice in the year 2022 of our Lord. Is be like, you know what I mean? It's like I worked with this guy for a long time who would do Austin Powers voice like all the time, and I was like, that would have been like whatever, like 20 years ago. But I'm like, it's 2022. Like this guy's just walking around like doing the
Yeah.
do I make you? I'm like, there's like I feel like okay. 3 impressions that if you do them, it's like you go like you're done. You go straight to the gulag, right? It's like any
like a
Mike
progressive
Myers
level
voice,
creepy. Yeah.
any South Park voice, and any like Borat voice. If it's like 2022 and it's almost exclusively right, like weird like 35 to 45-year-old like white guys,
Yep.
like we'll just drop the like my life. And I'm not gonna lie, once in a while it will get me, but like having worked with so many of those guys, I'm just like, this is like I'm like, you're a middle manager.
Yeah, it's always an office setting
suburb,
that you hear
and
it.
you're just doing like you're doing the Eric Cartman respect my like I almost was about to do it, but like the cringe of trying to like move my tongue into that position was so crushing that it could
Body
like
just immediately rejected it.
oh
Like,
yeah, it
no.
completely rejects it. I will say my favorite V voice is the one you do that's kind of like the sad husky voice where you'll be like, oh no. That's like the best. Yeah, exactly.
So
I feel like
my therapist was gonna my therapist kind of suggested that was like when I was doing the voice stuff early on, like, holy shit, it's so good. You should have a conversation with yourself back and forth. Hi, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going fine. How are you?
Totally normal advice, and totally down that path does not lead to madness. You know,
Yeah.
that everyone who's ever started doing 2 voice conversations with themselves, no one's ever gone crazy 0% of the time.
For
It's
sure.
not like that scene
No
in Lord of
split
the Rings where
personality.
Gollum
Yeah.
is speaking to himself.
And it's always looked completely normal.
It's always looked
Yeah.
really good. It's actually, I'll say, it's looked cool. Like people have always been like, "That's really cool." When
Yeah, it's better. It's actually better, I heard, if you do it in public.
Yeah, you
Especially when
should
you're just
try and
like
do whatever.
grocery shopping.
Yeah, just to yourself, and you're just checking
Yeah,
things off your own list.
yeah.
I will kind of use not in public, but in VR public. I will kind of use that as like a vibe check for people if I feel like the environment's right. Or I'll have people because it's not perfect, but people will come up and be like, "What gender are you?" And I'm just like,
Whatever you want me to be.
People ask that in VR chat? That seems
yeah.
crazy to me. It's like you're in VR chat. Like,
Well, it's because, it's probably mostly guys, right? And so like they're probably trying to find like that occasional girl that they're like, "Oh, bet. Like I've struck gold here."
bet,
I mean,
bet.
anime
What?
girls in VR, like girl stands for guy in real life. So.
Yeah, plus you know what? And there's also a lot of like and I've noticed this with pretty much I would say a good portion of my friends that I've met through crypto Twitter is there's a lot of like queer experience type thing going on in VR chat, right? Where it's
I
like,
was gonna say,
It's like the queers, the
not to
furries,
like
you can be who you want.
I mean, I'm not going to talk about the furries. I feel like I got caught on recording one time being negative about the furries, so I'm not going to say anything. Certainly
you
not with this
also, let's
current.
point out, you also have fox ears and a tail, so you cannot say much right now.
I don't know what you mean. V picked this out for me. I didn't even know what this looked like until now.
Totally.
But I
We
was gonna
bent
I
ears
was gonna
into the
say not
head.
to like make a big philosophical point about it, but like, yeah, I feel like crypto culture is either like 50% like fascists or libertarians, and then like
Uh-huh.
50% like queer folk who are
Mhm.
like experimenting with sexuality and gender identity. And I feel
Yeah.
like that is like the weirdest disconnect for me. It's like when that whole like what is his name, like Brantley, like his like
Oh, man.
hardcore
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
DNF
yeah.
Christian thing.
thing.
And I was like, but wait, who do you think is like building all of this shit? Like, who do you think you're actually talking to on a regular basis? Like, it's like
Yeah.
a vast amount of it are people who are queer.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I agree. I appreciate that about the industry, and by that, I mean, crypto is really fucking gay, right? Literally.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
it's kinda cool. It's nice to have, like, such an open community that is, I don't know how I would describe it really, 'cause I was never really lacking that as a kid or just growing up in general. Like, I never really felt like I was, like I don't know, it probably wasn't until I was, like, 22 years old where I was like, "Yeah, I'd fuck some dudes," you know? So it's like
that's just like a great realization to have. Like one, like you're like walking around, you're like in the supermarket, you're like checking out, you're like, yeah, you know what? I guess I probably would.
Yeah, totally, and it's kinda like that, right? Like, I never really grew up feeling alienated like that, so it's nice to see, like, without being able to totally relate to the underlying reasons why, it's nice to be able to experience that sort of open and flourishing, expression of identity, I think, and especially in a place where it's like, it's crypto Twitter, like, we all joke about it, but we all don't hate crypto, right? Like we're not like frothing at the mouth when people bring up
Right.
crypto because there are places online where there is that sort of gender identity and expression and exploration going on, but you bring up a single thing about crypto and you have brought up like an apocalypse upon yourself, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah. People really freak the fuck out.
Yeah.
yeah, so it's definitely like a special place, and I think that you had mentioned the sort of like meta group earlier, and I think that's a good way to put it because there are a lot of people that like that aren't going to take too kindly to the idea, and I thankfully I don't have a lot of exposure to them really. Not that I give a fuck what anybody thinks, you know what I mean? Just mute them or block them or whatever. But thankfully, it's mostly just cool people that I end up bumping into. Just so happens that I have 8,000 followers and they're all gay.
Yeah. And
I
we
mean,
talked about it. Oh, I was just
I was gonna say like, there that kind of leads to like a big, the really hard hitting question of this interview, which is like, why femboys?
So there is a reason somewhat. It wasn't like a conscious choice. But so I will say this. I'm not a big fan of labels, but I would consider myself, I suppose, to be pansexual, and what I guess the Zoomers would call fin romantic. Fin being feminine in nature, right? And so I'm pretty much attracted to just femininity in general. I don't really care about hardware. I care about aesthetics that I prefer. I care about personality that's compatible. Other than that, I kind of don't give a fuck, you know? And so, but nobody wants to hear a guy that's like simping over the idea of women, right? Like that's all over
100%.
the place, right? Like the reality of it is, if I said the same things just about women instead of femboys, nobody would have followed the account. The account would have been cringe. Everything would have been, I'd have just been this weird guy. But femboys in general sort of touch on this like sexual taboo for normies, where it's like they don't want to admit they're attracted to them. You know what I mean? You hear the whole like, oh, traps aren't gay, which by the way, traps are gay. If you like them, you're not straight. Okay?
This happens like once an episode. That's our bumper right there. That is the like market timestamp it. That's our
Oh,
teaser right there.
see, I thought the
That
bumper was gonna be the whole like, yeah, I'd fuck dudes or whatever.
I
Hey,
mean,
I
we
would fuck
got
dudes, and traps are gay,
There
right?
you go. There you go.
Let's just put it out there, right? Like, I mean, let's rip the Band-Aid off, because the reason people are so obsessed with femboys is because it's like it's just weird, like in between, it feels like, for people where they're women like, right? And you get people that want to ignore the fact that it's a dude, you know, and it's like I like touching on that because it's just provocative to a degree. I mean, I also like
yeah,
femboys, but it's provocative and it's
for
an easy
sure. There's
choice.
also a philosophy behind it.
Yes.
Right.
Well, you know, and we've touched on this before in the show, but like the idea of like cultural signifier, like what
Hmm.
really makes things different. Like, you know, at my day job, which is, you know, for all intents and purposes in the same field, right? It's all crypto. But at my
Yeah.
day job, you know, like no one's posting like Pepe reactions or,
Yeah.
you know, posting like, I don't know, this random string of digits that maybe if you enter it on a certain website pulls up a certain sequence of drawings that might be very provocative, right?
Yeah. Shout
Like
out to
the
Carnation.
yeah, I mean, literally, like the, and I think it, you know, it did become a meta where people were doing it mainly to just indicate, hey, I'm not a suit, right? Hey, I don't work for A16Z. I don't work for Goldman. I don't work for whatever. You can trust me. I'm
Hmm.
cool. And the way to show that, I mean, it's almost like, what is the, you know, it's like, oh, if you're not a cop, then like do this coke, you know, and
Yeah,
like a
what's
drug
the
bust. It's like,
Right.
okay,
Right.
if you're not a suit,
signifier?
like show me your love of something that world finds taboo or
Yeah.
that is like outsider. um so it's nice to hear, you know, it's not just like your brand is so tied with that iconography. It's nice to hear that it is genuine and not just, I feel like a lot of people who came later, not saying that you're like the father of femboys,
No, of
but I do
course.
think your success probably was the originating factor for part of the meta of people being like, oh shit, let me check the box. I got my 0x, I've got my thigh highs on,
Uh-huh.
and I'm posting femboys, and I will take my 2,000 followers now.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. No, it definitely wasn't meant to be like pay attention to me and notice me because I like femboys. It was like I genuinely feel that way. Like I genuinely like, as far as like if I were to think of somebody that I would bring home to my parents, they fit well within that category, you know? Just pretty much anybody that's feminine, really. That's the only requirement that I have. I am not somebody that's into masculinity whatsoever. And I've had people, on the topic of familiarity, I've had people send me some things and I'm like, hey man, you know,
Yeah, that seems a little beyond the pale.
Yeah, it's a
yeah, yeah.
Do you, I mean,
Unless
I
you're a
guess
femboy. I mean, hey, unless you're a femboy. But you know what I
the
mean?
DMs are open.
yeah,
Yeah.
tangentially related. Even I was on VR the other night, and I was with I was with a femboy friend. Like he had thigh highs in his pic in his profile picture,
Mhm.
and I had someone. So like I have I'm trans in my bio, and they came over to me, and a random person came over to me and was like, "Oh my god, a femboy and a trans male to female in the same room. I have to ask the question like, what's the difference?" And I'm like, "Oh boy, how do
It's,
I?"
you know, in a way, it is comforting to know like the internet will always be the internet.
Yeah.
Even in like this new frontier of virtual, someone's still gonna walk up and be like, you know, it's like that Xbox Live meme that's like humana a girl in voice
Yep.
chat. Like, you know, there are I get
The
like, do
difference
you
is
think
one experiences twink death and the other doesn't.
the death of the twin, do you think there's any validity to like the suits have to get like I don't know, prepped on femboy culture. Like there are all those memes that's like my FBI agent
Right.
learning about what thigh highs are. Like, do you think in order to speak the language, like to infiltrate more effectively, like they are embracing the meta? Like I'm sure there's just
It has
gotta
to
be,
be.
right? Someone
Yeah.
at Goldman who's like, oh no, I'm watching anime now and I've got my coding stockings on. Like that's gotta have reached them. They have to be aware of it.
Yeah, but we don't want to give that away though. We don't want to tell
No,
them
it's out
how
there.
to
It's
do
out
it.
there.
It's like when with this people are going to rush Area 51 and there was that image of the like army doing a demo and what the Naruto run is and like a guy demonstrating. Like I would assume that there are
Yeah.
at least some of those conversations happening at like
Yeah.
TradFi centers of power.
Culturally
Yeah, well, I
aware.
mean, if not for the fact that, like, there's a big faction of alt-right femboys, right?
Yeah.
And so I would think for that fact alone and well, not only that, but also, like, hacker culture, right?
Hmm.
Where it's just like, I would think for those 2 things alone, yeah, probably. There's gotta be, right? Like, and that's I don't know. I mean, the best way to solve this is to just, like, post lewds, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, just weed them out over time.
exactly. And so, basically, if somebody doesn't show hole, then I stop DMing them.
Prove to me.
Yeah,
Oh
It
exactly.
is, the alt right femboy is very funny because it's like the joke that like furries and Nazis, the Venn diagram is a perfect circle. And it's like,
Right.
wait a minute, like this, like your ideology would be totally at odds with like this presence. And I think in like a
Yeah.
bigger way, right? Like that is probably, like I said, like the biggest ideological battle in crypto is like we're all in service of cryptocurrency, but you're standing side by side with people who want to like destroy your material conditions or
Mm,
like your ability to like express yourself or express your gender or express your sexuality. And it's like,
yeah.
well, I don't really have a choice right now, but to like stand kind of technically on the same side as these people. Um, but then,
Yeah.
whatever that breaking point ends up being.
There was somebody, I can't remember who said this quote a long time ago, but somebody said at one point, "Bitcoin is money for your enemies." I think. I might be remembering the quote wrong. Somebody said Bitcoin is money for your enemies, and necessarily it has to be.
Right.
You can have things on the social layer where again, not everything needs to be decentralized, right? The idea that everything will operate in a decentralized manner is ridiculous. So you can have sort of levers and various checks and balances on the social layer, but on things like Bitcoin itself or like transferring ether from one party to another, that is very much something that is going to be like people that make you uncomfortable are going to be able to use it, and they
For sure.
they almost have to be able to use it, which is a
What's
conversation that
the
like
Vitalik quote?
Ethereum is
Ethereum is
neutral,
neutral, but I'm
but I
not,
am not.
right? Like
Yeah.
exactly. That's such a yeah.
Yeah.
That was such a great line, and it's
I
true.
loved when
Like,
you said that.
yeah, thanks. I've been thinking it for a while, but yeah, no, I definitely think there is kind of a I don't like to think of it as being on the same side, um, strictly because I want the substrate to be neutral, right? Like
Right.
almost like we live on the same planet. We have a vested interest on the Earth not exploding, right? I don't know if I would say we're on the same side for that reason, right? Because we have our own motivations and goals and reasons. I feel like it's a deeper and more broad thing. So I wouldn't
Our
worry too much
interests are
about.
momentarily aligned, right?
Yeah,
Like that's,
yeah,
I never thought I would die. It's the Lord of the Rings thing. I never thought I would die fighting side by side with like a libertarian internet pedophile. But
yeah,
here we
yep,
are.
yep,
The enemy of my enemy is my
Yeah, it's
frenemy.
the enemy of
Like,
my
yeah.
enemy is my mutual.
yeah,
Is my exit
yeah,
liquidity.
exactly. Hopefully, yeah, that's the ideal situation, right? Get to dump on your enemies.
Yeah.
Not to like pivot too hard, but a while, gosh, this is probably like 5 months ago at this point. But a while ago, like I was researching an article that I was writing, and you and I ended up talking a lot about it. And it was kind of on the topic of like leadership and like what does it mean to lead? What does it mean to like govern? And you kind of like you had alluded to like being in a leadership position before and understanding the pitfalls of it,
Mhm.
and being like inherently, suspicious of it. And I think, during this most recent kind of sequence of implosions we saw where like leadership culture went bad, right? Like the veneration of Three Arrows or of Do Kwon or whatever. Like
Right.
have has what are your thoughts on like leadership in the crypto space? Like has it evolved in light of how, I don't know how many times it's broken bad recently? Like do and putting it aside from hero worship, which I think we're probably all on the same page, is like not great,
Yeah.
but like in terms of like leadership, like have your thoughts changed? Like has the recent kind of death of these heroes like changed your views at all?
So, I would say, and I think I said it recently, I think crypto has a leadership problem. I think that a lot of leadership in crypto is very lackluster.
Yeah.
I think it sort of ties into the same reason that I'm not the biggest fan of DAOs and like organizations that are similar, very bearish on those in general. And this will probably catch a little bit, I'll probably catch a little bit of flame for saying something like that. Um, but I think that when it comes to leadership, it's like an art, right?
Mm-hmm.
You really have to perform it correctly, and you have to be genuine and authentic. And I think in this space, it's very easy to grift, and the incentives can very quickly become misaligned to where lying or backstabbing or doing something shady in general is, if you're strictly thinking it like from a rational actor's perspective, the incentives can quickly become where it's like I should do the wrong thing, right? Because
Right.
I'm gonna that's gonna have a bigger payoff. And that is something that, we should work to fix, obviously. That's not necessarily just at the fault of I would say if you take action on that, obviously you are accountable and responsible for doing so. But there is, I would hope, some accountability that lies on whatever social situation we have found ourselves in where that remains the norm, despite it
Mm-hmm.
happening over and over and over again. Um, I would say, in general, leadership is a hard thing. People, I go back and forth on whether or not people like to follow or not, but I do know that people, no matter what, like to be inspired. And I think a good leader is able to inspire through their actions, through their words, through their philosophies. Um, and really, like, where, if you ask yourself, who is the last person in a role like that in crypto that is like given that has said something philosophically inspiring to the point where it brings comfort or where it motivates you or makes you think like, hey, things aren't so bad. you know I don't there's probably a few. There are definitely a handful. I don't have a list ready in my mind to shout a few out, but like there is a staggering lack of that. And I was just talking to somebody about in like the corporate office life. I was in a Discord chat with somebody, and they were mentioning that they had a step count that they were doing with their team, right? And I'm sure you guys have probably seen it where you have like step competitions, which
Yeah.
team is going to get the most steps, whatever. And one person said, like, that's stupid. I can't believe they make you do that. And I was like, no, it's not that they make you do it. It's a thing that you participate in together, as like a team building exercise. It's not mandatory by any means, but it's like, it's a little competition. Competition's fun. And if your leader is good, you want to participate, you want to do it. It's a menial thing. It's pretty stupid, right? It's just you're walking, you're counting up numbers, and it doesn't mean anything. But a proper leader will make that feel meaningful. And I
Sure.
think there
Yeah.
aren't many people in general, and especially are not that many people in crypto that have that ability to do something like that, I would think. So it
It's
hasn't really
funny.
changed. I would say it remains as um, I don't want to say pessimistic because I don't like being pessimistic. I would say
Skeptical.
skeptical, I guess maybe would be the word. Yeah, I'm definitely very skeptical of people in leadership positions, and I also think that there's little to no protection or even discussion about protecting your in groups from social engineering. Also, I think that's something that's not very well explored. I think that Tux's tweet the like a week or two ago about like gatekeep crypto from like L2, not L2, from Web 2 fucks that are coming in, like VCs that are just trying to,
Right. Yeah.
shit their Web 2 products down our throats and make money. The amount of cope on their tweet about gatekeeping was honestly hilarious to me, because I think as a whole, for some places, we probably don't gatekeep enough, right? And
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
there's a balance to be struck between being open and accepting of like a difference in individuals, but also you should vibe check motherfuckers probably pretty often.
Yeah.
Like you can't gatekeep Ethereum itself, right? And I don't think you should necessarily try to, but if you're in a group chat that has some kind of like collaborative on-chain thing, that very quickly devolves. Like if the wrong person comes into that place, leadership gets thrown into question because they can affect it by saying things that like slowly cross these lines that are sort of implicitly in place, right? And once those lines are crossed, and once that person begins to sort of take hold of the narrative, it's like a terminal illness, right? Like if you don't gatekeep the right way, and you don't provide effective like leadership and direction, the moment that happens, you're fucked. It's just a matter of time until things fall apart.
It's gonna
Uh,
spread and grow like crazy. And I
yeah.
feel like I feel like we've been seeing to some degree, at least specifically regarding DAOs,
Mhm.
um, pushback. Be it was it Kasu for like proposal for makers governance or sushi's governance in terms of
Maker governance is one of my favorite things. The amount of shit that they have to put up with, but the quality smackdowns they provide are
yeah.
so funny. Like I posted about the Ohm as collateral. Somebody proposed at one point using Ohm as collateral for MakerDAO, and basically the response from MakerDAO was like, "Are you fucking stupid?
Well,
Why
hold
would
on.
we?"
I mean, it is the global reserve currency that
Right?
Oh,
they
here
all
Yeah.
we
promised.
Yeah.
go.
Right. I
Totally.
mean, come on.
Totally.
But
Um,
I just mean my point being that we're slowly seeing, maybe not specifically with, say, like singular leaders,
mhm.
but forms of leadership pushback in terms of like, no, we don't need fucking input from the general public on every single decision. We need like
Yeah.
some form of base leadership direction, someone to steer the ship.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
yeah, I feel like we're slowly seeing the tide shift back that
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
The
from my
optimism of
observation.
DAOs has worn off a little, right? Because people realize that the actual execution or day to day is difficult.
Yeah.
Totally.
Um, and yeah, I guess the current solution is like that hybrid model that I think a lot of people do, right? Where there's like a core team or a multi-sig that does a lot of the day to day things, and then bigger, more sweeping things ending up getting brought to the community. But
Yeah.
is there like a hypothetical stage beyond that? Like if it's like, okay, full decentralized autonomy doesn't work, and then like traditional C-suite function doesn't work, is it like the best thing that we do is just kind of mash those together, or is there like a solution beyond that?
Um, I would say that I personally disagree that the C-suite function doesn't work. I
Yeah.
think that for a lot of things, it's probably the appropriate approach. I mean, being able to have something, and obviously it's contextual, and there's tons of nuance involved in like which approach you take and who you involve in the decision making and how much the community matters in that process. Um, but I would say having a group of executives that their job is to make the thing work. I mean, it's much better than having 1,500 people in a Discord who inherently their job isn't to make the thing work. It's to make it work enough to make number go up so they can dump and move on to the next thing. Like
Right.
there's not like most people don't give a fuck about like the long-term direction of a DAO, right?
Incentives
It's
aren't
just
aligned. Yeah.
it's just LARPing, right? This like wag me woke, I'm a part of 87 DAOs and we're all really working on this thing, and I'm just this enlightened person that's working on this enlightened structure. You just wouldn't get it. You have to be, you'll evolve to my position eventually. Don't worry. Like, I don't think that's going to work, obviously. I think that with what you had said, the optimism of DAOs or the romanticization of DAOs wearing off, I think that you'll see a lot more structures that are similar to C Suite or maybe something new that is enabled by crypto that hasn't been tried yet. But I think I think a lot of things will trend toward a little bit more centralized from the organizational like decision making standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. It was I think the optimism governance board was like one of the nails in the coffin for me.
Oh,
Like
dude.
what, just like watching like some of the proposals on there, and I was like, this has to be a joke. Like this can't be real. Like what was
Yeah.
it? People like proposing like different gas tokens, or like it was just like really like
Yeah.
insane to me, and it was like a real failure there. And obviously, like, we don't have the answer, because if we had the answer, we'd all be rich, and like our beautiful new governance system would be the one that everyone uses, and
Right.
we'd already be independent. But I kind of wanted to touch on something you alluded to a little bit ago, which was like that one of the guardrails is kind of like the social layer, right? Of like,
Mhm.
if a leader is, feels social pressure, they won't defect, which is kind of like funny, because that's like the whole, right, that's the whole thing that crypto is meant to solve, is like, you should be able to, decisions should be made outside of the vacuum of the social sphere. But then we are again like resorting to trying to align incentives, and like, well, hey, I'm not going to defect because it would look bad or whatever.
Mhm.
And I think that's just like a really interesting, like, you know unexpected thing about crypto. It's like, as we're trying to solve for the future, our best way of keeping leaders from acting like shitheads is to be like, well, people would be mad at you, right? Or like, it would
Yeah.
be damaging to you socially.
Yeah. Well, so I think that some of that comes from a little bit of bleed through with the expectation of how the base layer is supposed to operate. The game theory that's at play with both like things like Bitcoin and Ethereum, where you're supposed to be, you can be an honest actor if you want to, but it's supposed to also work for rational actors, people that are strictly motivated by profit. Incentives are supposed to be aligned such that the system continues running, even if the person has a difference of opinion, even if you're enemies, it's supposed to work. I don't think I don't think it translates to DAOs or social layers as cleanly. I think you have to look at it differently. But I think a lot of people, because the space is sort of predicated upon game theory and social consensus, it's like in the conversation to begin with. I think that might kind of be I think that might be doing people a disservice, because they come to decentralized applications or organizations that strictly exist on chain, and they want to think about them in a way of like, how do we get rid of like that social requirement in the same way that you do with like Bitcoin and Ethereum nodes? But I don't think you need to. I think for
Yeah.
things like Uniswap, for example, Uniswap, like let's call it like V2. Like I know V3 is immutable as well. It's every bit as much of a, so to speak, a hyperstructure as V2 is, but V2 is like the quintessential, like, perfect tool, right? Like you think about Uniswap V2, nobody owns it, anybody can use it. Sure, the front end has various restrictions imposed because there's the Uniswap Labs owned front end, um, but anybody can interface on it with their own front end. You can trade any tokens that you want. You can't actually ever delist anything from the protocol. Um, I think that's a perfect example where the social layer can be cut out because the protocol can be made perfectly immutable and it works regardless. But I think that if the protocol cannot survive without some form of like human,
Right. Yeah.
upkeep, then I think you just have to not focus on getting rid of the social layer, but focus on the best way to integrate it, and on the best way to manage it. Because I think that trying to get rid of it where it has to necessarily exist anyway, it causes a lot of problems for sure.
Yeah, or figure out the best way to, I guess, for lack of a better term, correctly incentivize, like push the right incentives for the social element if you have to, if you can't get rid of
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Because I was thinking back to the Sammy interview, talking about things like, yeah, Uni V2 is a perfect example. Things that are put out there that don't need to be touched, or
Yeah.
completely just standalone products.
hmm
Um, but I'm not an expert in any way. It's got to be hard to design and account for all of that when building this stuff.
yeah,
So, uh,
Yeah. It's like the idea that that parts of the internet are run on this like piece of code that is thanklessly maintained by some guy in Arkansas, right?
yeah,
yeah,
And it's like, well, yeah, so how immutable can a system be if at one point, somebody has
hmm
to go and update this, or if this ends up, I think like, certainly when, not that it's necessarily one to one, but when like Flash became no longer the standard and everyone stopped supporting it, and you have all these like legacy applications or pieces of media or like points of like, that was like a real moment that showed like, well, along the constant path of upgrading, right, we are going to run into those issues, and very rarely are communities or like community governance in any way like equipped with the right tools to make the decisions of how you go about that. Like, how do you maintain, or how do you
Right.
continue to build, or what gets left behind, or how do you cut? Because almost all of those things are, like you said, like for rational actors, like you have to make kind of a calculus of this decision does not yield this much profit versus like a community, a Discord of like 20,000 people.
Mm,
There's going to be a percentage that no matter what are like, well, I think we should support this, or I think
right.
this should be right. It's really hard to get all of those people aligned, and certainly like empowering those people, I think, ends up leading to a lot of difficulties that we see in DAOs where they just get like gridlocked, or
Yep.
they misallocate those resources and they're building something that nobody cares about, or supporting
Yeah.
something that nobody cares about.
Yeah, and Hasu had a great point toward your point about misallocating resources. I think the entire bull market, Hasu spent, saying like, "Hey, you should manage your treasuries properly,"
Yeah.
right? And now we have DAOs that are that are like down 80%, right, at their all-time high values, and they have these treasuries that are like in the thin millions of dollars, and it's like, how do you continue operating? And so
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
I
that's good.
I was going to say, like, I audited the books of a DAO that will remain nameless a while ago as part of like a case study, and their treasury was losing like 9% consistently, like week over week, or reporting period
Holy
over reporting
shit!
period.
Yikes.
And like it was like, they were somehow losing in stables. They weren't doing directional bets even, and they were still experiencing this level of loss. Like holding in your own token, or whatever, will like always give risk, but like treasury management, just like when it went by the wayside, and I think nobody cared, right? Because it was up only, right? Like our coin will
Yeah.
go up. Our treasury is predominantly denominated
Yep.
in our native token, and so like we're fine. And yeah, when that house of cards went down, it was crazy also then to see the actual performance of those treasuries. Like so few people were actually generating any type of returns that they talked about.
Yeah.
um, and certainly like the traditional corporate treasury model is something like I work with a lot on a day-to-day basis, and
Mhm.
it's just so crazy in crypto seeing like, let alone like risk management or whatever, but just like actually how do you manage a treasury? No one seems to think about it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like for a lot of these, it's like a bunch of builders or technically minded people got together, and they're like, well, I mean, why do we have to care about that like nerd math shit about like balancing
Exactly.
economically if we're just like building something that's inherently, this is just going to go up and it's going to be the next, Uniswap or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, and for a while there, the only treasury management that was being done was hooking the treasury into other Ponzi's, right? And so,
Yeah.
Oh,
I
the
mean,
DAO's like pumping all every other DAO because everyone's got their own
yeah,
pool and
everybody's
yeah.
adopting like Ohm, and everybody's buying a little bit of this, a little bit of that. We're gonna hold some Curve tokens. We're gonna hold a little bit of this other DAO's tokens. It's like that's not effective treasury management, man. Like, and that comes from, I would say, bull market mania, but also again a failure in leadership and a failure to recognize that a handful of devs, that as talented as they may be, a handful of devs in a Discord full of apes does not make a C-suite,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like you don't know what the fuck you're doing, and you have to recognize where you don't know what the fuck you're doing. And I think a lot of DAOs just don't. They're under this illusion that if we have a lot of people come together in this imagined grand marketplace of ideas, that we're going to get the best of the best, right? And it just doesn't work that way. I think
Yeah.
you
I
have to
mean, it's rough
hire
to read all those
effectively.
like coin fashions, of people who are like DAOs are just bloated with people making $10,000 a month who are not, actually doing anything. And then
Hmm.
devs are building something without any actual direction, and there's no idea of how to monetize.
Yep.
Um, and it just, yeah, it looks more and more like those bloated, non-successful models from traditional like corporate life, right? Like it's just, very, and all love and respect to devs and engineers. Like I can't do it. I think they're geniuses, whatever. But
Hmm.
there's very few times where those like types of units have been allowed to self-organize and have actually succeeded, right?
Right.
Like it's very, very rare that the builders are running the ship and making the best financial or HR or staffing or marketing or whatever decisions.
Yeah. Hmm.
And those people are great, but like I was recently at a work function, and all of the people who were like sales facing or market facing were wearing suits, and all of the devs were like wearing graphic t-shirts, which whatever. But literally in the middle of like a grand ballroom party, some
Right.
motherfucker pulled out his laptop and dropped to the floor to start coding. And I was like, that's really cool. Like good for you. But like
Yeah.
the time, place, the optics, like the effect,
Yeah.
like it just, it was like such a clear moment of disconnect.
Yep. Totally. Can you guys
Somebody
hear the
feels like
thunder
it.
through my microphone?
No. Is there
No,
thunder
No?
anywhere
I
you
think
are?
so. No.
You didn't
Some
hear that?
Oh,
Just
fucking you
that
should not have said that.
right
Some
on.
weirdo is going to like
wow.
figure out where is thunder happening right now.
Yeah, by the way, by the time this goes live, it's going to be like offset by a week. We recorded this a week ago, and
We actually recorded this 2 years ago. I don't know any I
Time
don't know what
capsule.
Luna is.
yeah, I hope 3AC is doing well. I hope Ohm is the future of finance.
I love that we're living in our own state. Well, I guess that's kind of a good topic. Then it's like those all were kind of metas, right, of this last cycle. Like, do
Yeah.
you have any like inkling of like what you think is next? And hopefully not an answer like that is like clearly ideologically based and awesome, which is like I think the next meta is like responsibility and transparency because that's boring. Like no one wants to like that's obvious, right? Like I hope the next meta is like us growing up. But do you have like any I don't know sense of like where you think maybe things are heading in an interesting way?
Or even where you want things to go.
Well, from a Ponzi perspective and like what's the next casino attention grab, I would have to say that I don't. I want to say that when with the proliferation of roll-ups, specifically roll-ups where gas costs are amortized across different users in a given batch, right? So you can have gas costs that are effectively negligible to the point where they are subsidized by the roll-up operators, like you saw on what's that one? Immutable X, I think is the name of it.
Yeah.
Right, the NFT one, right? Gas was free, they were paying for it. It was only costing them like $9,000 a day. Um, I think we'll see the return of things like Satoshi Dice, which is, a game that used to be played on chain on Bitcoin, um, where you just gambled dice for a payoff. And that for a long time was a big was a big producer of fees on Bitcoin. And when fees got to the point where that wasn't, feasible anymore, it stopped being played. And you cannot play a game of Satoshi Dice on mainnet Ethereum. You'll die. You have to be like maybe Kobe could play a game with himself, right, of Satoshi Dice on chain. But when we have these roll-ups where, especially after EIP 4844, um, in a post 4844 world, the fees are just going to tank to the floor. And I think that we're going to have a little bit more gambling oriented Ponzi's come up. Satoshi Dice, maybe like micro betting on various outcomes of things. I think sports gambling will come back in a pretty big way. I expected by now, for the FTX prediction markets, I expected FTX to be all over this already, and there's a disappointing lack of like sports betting.
Yeah, that feels like a really natural evolution for them, right?
Yeah,
Like, and I'm sure they already have someone hired over there who's like ex
totally.
MGM or whatever, who's like
Mhm.
all ex DraftKings, who's just like this. Yeah, this is the next thing we're absolutely gonna like dive into it.
Yeah, I think I think it's inevitable for them. I also think that on-chain applications that allow sort of the super frequent, like I don't know I don't know what the word for it is if there is one, but like nano gambling, right? Where like
Mm-hmm.
you can just like fuck around with like a couple bucks on chain, and roll-ups will make it cheap enough where that's feasible. Um, I think that'll play a bigger role in the next cycle. And then the only other prediction that I've got like a few ideas of where I think things might go. I think that I think we'll see, in the topic of like gatekeeping and not protecting social groups enough. I think we'll see like a harsh swing the other direction. Okay, there's a bit of thunder along with. Can you guys hear that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
coming
Yeah.
through.
a harsh swing as the thunder cracks across the sky. Um, I think we'll see like almost like a red scare of sorts
Sure.
of like people wanting to protect their in groups, and like maybe it'll be spurred by like North Korea's consistent presence in the background, like seemingly hacking any and everything. And like from what I've seen, like their social engineering is pretty damn good, but also like their social engineering from like just genuine assholes in the community, and I think we'll see hopefully pushback against that. It might go too far to where there's some sense of like isolationism going on. But I would hope that like that gets addressed a little bit, because I'll say like personally, I've seen people that are even in our like mutual friend groups or mutual like acquaintances that are just they're not what I would consider to be good people. There's like a small handful, and like they get the good graces of just enough people to constantly stay, they're always present in a group chat, but their behavior is like they'll it's almost like predatory, right? Well, I've had a
Yeah.
couple people. There's a person in particular that I will never, I would never talk about, other than just like sort of alluding to. But there's a person in particular I know will message people things, direct message people things, hoping to get an outcome out of it, and they'll message things that are very clearly past a line, right? Where it's like it should be discussed with the rest of the group,
Mhm.
but they'll sort of corner people, and they have this habit. And I've had people, come to me and say, "Hey, this person did this thing." And it's like, "Oh yeah, 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 totally. I know what you like. I've heard it from another person before. They've tried to do it to me before." It's a very like I would say that like social groups, I would hope in the future are there's more tools to deal with. Uh, I don't know if you would call them like sociopaths. It is sociopathic behavior
The
for
generic
sure.
bad actor.
Yeah, because they're definitely like around, and they okay. They're definitely around, and they definitely impact things. And I've definitely seen one dismantle a group before. So I would like to see in the future that being settled a little bit. And because, right now there's no like, what do I do to solve that? Like, do I make a stink on Twitter and then it's like the drama of the week, and then what? I get ostracized for nothing happens to them, you
No.
know?
Yeah.
So I would like to see some kind of incentive structure, or just something, some way that social groups could protect themselves a little bit better, because right now it's it's like disastrously subpar. Um, and then other than
Yeah.
that, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, I think part of that is like the inherent problem with like this is fundamentally like PvP and
Hmm.
game theoretic like your ideal outcome, and so like what the bar is for when somebody is being a bad actor is really you know ambiguous in crypto. It's like okay, I mean, if you're like front running and like you know I don't know, like you're getting the edge on someone, you're finding a drop, you're dumping on someone. Like at what point we have to separate like that is fair game versus that is malicious. And I
Yeah.
do think to your point, like people only really care if it's someone in the group doing it to someone else in the group. Like, no one cared when they dumped, I don't know, their optimism tokens, or if they like, someone we did a bunch of LP rotations, but like tons of great group chats with people I love who it's just like the minute there's one of those opportunities, it's like blood in the water. And it's
Yeah.
like, all right, we're gonna move in this semi-coordinated fashion to maximally extract this value. And then like I don't care what happens to anyone else,
Right.
because that is kind of like the rules of what is it, it's like live by the sword, die by the sword, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
for
that is,
sure.
I think, ultimately just an absolute zero sum game, right? There is
Mhm.
no positive that comes out of that.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's like really interesting. uh, I mean, definitely can stop this recording and you can tell us who you're talking about, because we won't spread it around now, because
No,
right,
no,
I'm
no.
so crazy, I'm just like it's me somehow, I'm the
Oh,
monster.
come on.
No, 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 not at all.
I
No, it's,
yeah.
I think if it's one of those things where it's a big enough presence that it'd be awkward to bring up to other
Yeah,
people, because, like, I've had probably, like, 5 people just, like, spontaneously mention it to me out of just, like, through the course of conversation, and I'm like, you know, I I don't, like, info dump on them every single time, like, "Yeah, totally, this person's done this, 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 and this," and,
I have the
you
screenshots.
exactly, but
Yeah.
it's like it's those things that you take note of, right? Like, you have these kind of things that throughout the cadence of your interacting with the community, you sort of note, uh, relevant things about people, the way they act and their behavior, and it's just one of those things where, like, the person is definitely strictly zero sum, and not even just in a financial way, just in a very, like, unkind, very, like, I hesitate to use the word bully, right? Because, like, what is a bully in a space where you can just, like, block somebody and they don't affect your life? But when
In
they're
the
in, like,
immortal Tyler the Creator words, just how is cyberbullying real? Just turn off the computer.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But it's just a very, like, just a very unpleasant individual for sure. Yeah.
And it's
Well, it's fine.
harder
We're not
in
a
group
drama
dynamics.
podcast.
Well, look, here we go. We're gonna turn into one.
We're a comfy podcast. We'll start our drama podcast later. We'll get on our
That'll
Keemstar
be our
shit.
yeah.
Yeah, 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 for sure. We
But
need
it is harder in I was just gonna say I get that it would definitely be harder in like kind of the group setting, even if a person is a bad actor. Obviously you mentioned like how they are perceived Like they
Right.
have just enough clout, for lack of a better term, that people want to be associated with them, and so you don't want
Right.
to cause
Right, if
that
they if
kind of
they want
weird
you to see
dynamic.
them
Yeah,
yeah, if they want you to see them in a positive light, that's how you're gonna see them.
yeah.
Until you do something they're not, happy with, then you're definitely gonna hear it, and you're gonna realize pretty quick, I think. But it's also like how like it's almost you feel this need to like I don't know, like when you see a kid like sticking a fork into an outlet, and you're like, probably don't do that. This is why that's a bad
Right.
idea, right? It's like
You
it's
stop short
enough
of
to where
directly interfering, though.
yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I would directly interfere with a kid sticking a fork in an outlet,
Yes,
but
but that's
you know
Yeah, I
what
mean,
I
that's
mean?
you protecting someone. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right, right.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's like I feel this like urge to just be like, "Hey, be careful, dude." Like I've seen enough. Just be careful. But you can't exactly say that. You can't exactly just go to everybody and just be like, "Hey, be careful of this guy." Because then it's going to be like you're just causing problem. You're causing drama. You know what I
You're
mean?
arousing
So yeah.
suspicion. Yeah. What about you? What do you have against this person? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's a whole big thing. And honestly, I don't care for drama. I don't wanna the last thing I wanna do is, like, debate people or, like, argue on Twitter, you know what I mean? Like, that shit is so fucking exhausting, internet arguments, I
Yeah, I think it also doesn't help that so many entrants to this space are young,
yeah.
you're incentivized if you're young and like, it doesn't really matter what I do. Like, I will take do the bad thing for my gain because it doesn't matter. And then
Right.
also, like, young people on the internet tend to be some of the most like self-righteous, cemented in thought,
Yeah.
there's nothing like watching like two like people barely into their 20s, if that, like get into some like philosophical argument on the internet. And I'm like, man, just like, have you ever like paid rent?
Yeah, yep,
Have you like,
yep.
you really got to chill out talking about, X, Y, and Z and think you have the answers to the universe.
Yeah. Like, you've
But
literally
yeah, I
never
think,
sat in, like, 5 o'clock traffic. Like
yeah, right. I'd be like, what, have you ever done jury duty? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
It's gonna be interesting too, touching on like the social type of attacks, because I feel like to some degree I agree that people aren't talking about it as much. Like I feel like it's kind of subpar, but I'm
Mhm.
also seeing like I feel like we're seeing a weird increase in, depending on the community, like because the technical stuff is increasingly getting harder. Like there's going to be
Mhm.
more social engineering type attacks. Was it? I don't remember if I mentioned it on a previous episode. It was like NFT Twitter. A couple of influencers like got hacked a couple weeks ago, like posting like spam links to like mint sites that would steal
As
your
Oh
is
yeah.
as
stuff.
is seemingly the norm over there, yeah.
But these were ones like, if I understood right, and I haven't explored the story fully, but like these were people who had 2FA that was compromised. And
Mm,
so the rumor
mhm.
at this point is it someone at Twitter? Is it like an
Ah,
inside
yeah.
job type of thing? So it's like
So, when it
the social attacks, I just fear, are going to get more complex and difficult to
Yeah. I feel like when
handle.
it comes to NFT people, it's probably like Occam's razor. Like, it probably isn't somebody at Twitter. Like, it probably was just one of them freely gave away their keys, thinking they were getting another Bored Ape or something.
Yeah.
But I do totally agree. I do totally agree. Like, there are a lot of attack surfaces, and I don't think I've seen a single resource on like how to prevent against like social engineering of your group. Right? There is no like be vigilant narrative or message anywhere really. I don't think 'cause,
Yeah.
you've seen plenty on how not to get hacked, or like how to interact with things safely, how to check like the output of MetaMask to see that you're interacting with the right contract, how to check the contract. There is no like how to not get like infiltrated, or like how to like maintain the vibe, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's like the like intangible part of it that is like so much based on like life experience or
Yeah.
vibes or whatever. Is like, it's one thing to be like, oh, this is right, like this is how you would avoid giving your seed phrase to someone. It's much different when it's like, this is like how you tell if someone is like a good person or is like acting in good faith to the group, or
Yeah.
and I think like inherently, right, people want internet communities to be as open and welcoming and
Mhm.
permissionless and like, who cares, as laissez-faire as possible. And then when you open up those floodgates, you've seen these very targeted groups in the past who have gone into other communities to like drain all the juice out of the fruit as fast as they can.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, that's the other hard thing. Like, if you aren't, well versed in how to like, I don't know, get a read on somebody, then, it doesn't matter how technically proficient you are. All it matters is that somebody, you know, takes advantage of you in like a social setting, and you have
Right.
the same, if not like worse, fallout than if someone had just grabbed your keys.
It's almost
Totally.
kind of weird because it's like we have the meme, you know, everybody's a Fed, but it's like, no, you really should check and make sure. Do that. It's like a make sure
Yeah.
they're not Feds. Come on.
Yeah. Ask them to show hole.
Oh God.
I've doxed to like 5 people recently. And now in retrospect, I realize that should be my first question. I'd be like, sorry, buddy, you didn't pass the test. You didn't show hole.
Show hole.
Yeah. It's honestly, it's never worked as like a requirement, as a prerequisite. I don't think it's ever worked.
I was gonna be like, what is your rate of success with that? Is
Well, I mean,
Actually,
there's
it's
two answers. It's like very low or it's like extremely high.
so the original it has worked before. That's cap. It has definitely worked before.
I'll grab my water over here really quick. Sorry.
It's no worries. Yeah, it's worked. I mean, people on the internet, there are people on the internet still, so you know, I've been definitely sent some crazy things. And I feel like there's definitely a few people where I could ask for crazy things and get them immediately.
Random stummy pics. No, I've never.
See, now that you bring that up, that's funny that you say no, you never. But anyway, the stummy meme, right? That was a fun one because that one had a lot higher success rate, right? Like that was like at one point I posted that like something along the lines of just like wanting stummy pics, right? And like that day I got like 7 or 8 from different people, and it's like it's kind of like a mimetic thing, right? Like it's almost like a meme that people are participating in that like I don't know, they feel like it's like fun or whatever. But it was also like, okay, you're definitely a real person, right? Like I have an idea of what you look like, right? Because you've sent like 2 pictures from 2 different angles. Like I get it.
It's like an element
you
that's
know?
vulnerable enough. Like
Yeah.
it's honest
Yeah.
and vulnerable enough. It's like, okay, I have you get a general sense of
Right. You're not a skinwalker. Like I know.
I mean,
yeah.
there is a very direct corollary there because I was something Vee and I talked before. It's like, but what do animals do if they show you they want to be friends? It's like they show their bellies, right? They like expose the vulnerability, and
Yeah.
there's like a very neat and very clear 1-to-1 right there.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah. So I mean, hey, if you would like to, that's
Folks,
stopping you.
I need to leverage it. I'm proud owner of stummy.eth here.
Yeah, that's a good
Wow.
one to own. That's a
Wow.
great
Yeah.
one to own.
I really almost fell for the meme. I was gonna DM Indy, and then I was like, you know what? This is maybe breaking the kayfabe too much. You know, like this is
I
maybe
didn't.
a bridge too far.
I didn't tell you how I got him on the podcast.
Yes, you somehow compromise of me. My VR actually has been recording me this whole time.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
You know, I actually did have like a kind of a random question. How do you get so many personalized reaction images? I feel like I see you drop indie reaction images to things, and I'm always like so jealous.
Have
Like,
you
did
made
you just
them, or
find like some person on Fiverr and you were just like, I need these expressions of this character?
No, but I am going to. Thus far, I have just found pictures of the original character and just taken the time to try to edit them on my own and just make them, look like indie. Which is why, like, I don't think that I have enough. I want more for sure. And some of them, if you like zoom in enough, you can see like remnants of like the previous hair color or like a little bit of things that are not quite perfect. Otherwise, it would just take way too much investment of time for what is effectively just an image that I'll post and then forget about. But no, I like having reaction images. So eventually, I'm gonna get for Discord, I'm gonna have a handful of indie emotes made, and then just different reaction images in general drawn up and things like that. I like having those. I think it adds a lot when I'm able to post those.
Yeah, that's a lot of flavor to the brand. I was gonna say like the person who I see who has done that the most has been Vee, like the Vee facial like expressions. Like really always
take
like,
to a
blow me
green
away.
screen world and yeah.
Yeah, she dropped a V sticker on me the other day. Yeah, that one. It's like, what is this? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm falling behind with my personal brand. Like that is like the instant recognize the Doofy V got to be my favorite.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that's I mean it's perfect.
Yeah.
It
Oh yeah,
literally
that's
cracks me up every time I see it.
the one
It's
when
definitely
I
a classic.
when I like fell in love with it. I was like, this every time this doofy fucking face. It's because it's just so on brand at this point.
Yeah.
Indy, do you have any hobbies or things you enjoy that most people would be surprised to find out that you love?
I was gonna ask you guys the same thing actually.
Oh,
Yeah, I
uh,
was gonna ask you guys about, and I'll answer the question, but I was gonna ask you about things about you that people would be surprised to know, or people that would never guess, or things that you
This is
do
so nice.
generally.
I feel like
Yeah,
no one
well,
ever asks us. No one ever,
ooh, ca-
you know, we never get it
yeah. How
turned
are
back at
you?
us. How are you? How are you really?
Yeah. Um, it's always
well,
when interview, not how interviewers.
Yeah,
yes.
never.
Can the interviewers do something?
Yeah.
The
Hobbies that
answer is
people
no
would be,
consistently.
if the hobbies that people would be surprised about. Man, I don't know. This I should have a good answer because I have this document, like kind of like of my life, sort of, right? Where like, if you were to ask me my favorite movie, I right in this very moment I couldn't answer that. Um, so like when things like that come to me, I like to write them in this document so that I can remember for the future, right? So someone asks me like, "What is your favorite such and such?" I can be like, "Oh, I wrote this down. I thought about this. This is definitely it." Because I'm not always thinking of those things, and when I'm put on the spot, it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, it's fair.
I
It's
love making a dossier on yourself. That's so like checkmate feds. Like I already
Yeah. Yeah, and on that is a list of, like, hobbies that I enjoy. Just so, like, one of the reasons I also do it is, like, it's also like a therapeutic thing, right? Like, everybody gets those days where you feel disjointed, you don't feel quite like
Mhm.
yourself, you feel like things are wrong, and you're not quite sure. Some people, sometimes it's easy to lose track of who you are, and I am somebody that has suffered from or dealt with depression since I was like 10 years old, and so I have this as a mechanism where if I sort of lose track and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? What the fuck do I want to do? I can go to this document and be like, all right, bet I know I like all these things. Let me just pick something from here. I'm gonna go do that. I'm just gonna go focus on just that. So things like, hiking trails, kayaking. These aren't really surprising activities. I'm
I
really
mean, it's surprising for the internet. I feel like no one has ever like, yeah, my favorite thing is like going outside and like hiking a mountain.
touching grass and
Yeah.
shit. Yeah, yeah. No, I love being outside. I love hiking trails. I love nature generally. Like, when Splat shares like the pictures of the bugs that he takes while he's like walking out and about, I love that shit, man, because I'm so fascinated by bugs in general. I'm fascinated by birds. I am fascinated by snakes and frogs and shit like that, and I love being fascinated by that because it's such a simple thing, and they're
Mm-hmm.
everywhere, right? So like everywhere I go, there's always something that I can find enjoyable, and so that is definitely probably my number one thing is be outside, be in nature, um, and to interface with that. And eventually, like I would like to start documenting like local flora and fauna and um, you know tending to a garden of various plants that would invite different insects and animals over to like my area so that I can take pictures of them or whatever, just enjoy their presence. So I would say that's definitely number one. Probably not surprising, I would say, but yeah, that's definitely by far.
Nice.
I'm surprised. I think that was a great answer.
I don't know. Yeah,
How
and I
about
feel
you,
like
V? What's your secret surprising hobby?
secret surprising hobby. um, maybe it's not that surprising, but I've been slowly getting back into it. I used to be super big on dream research, trying to
Oh,
understand
cool.
like dreams and trying to use like I have a ton of books on like lucid dreaming and trying to like take
Yeah,
control
yeah.
within the dream and exploring like that aspect of the um just the human mind in general is just extremely fascinating to me. But that particular element of like, what are we doing when we're sleeping? What's going on in the brain,
Mhm.
and all the different possibilities. And
I used to lucid dream a lot, actually. I nowadays I don't remember my dreams at all. Um, I the last time I had a dream, actually, I had a nightmare recently, which is the first time in hell, probably 15 years that I've
oh
had a
wow,
nightmare. Yeah. It
Really?
was yeah, it was awful. It was actually I dreamt that Mugen died.
oh
Oh, well, that is not only a nightmare, that is like the greatest yeah, that is a huge tragedy.
Yeah, and in this dream, and I told him about it too, because I was like, "Yo, I just want you to know that I appreciate you a shitload, right?" Because like I had just woken up from this like emotional experience. It's like, damn, Mugen is awesome. So I'm gonna go tell him that today. Um, but yeah, it was like this whole thing. I had to, I like got a message on his account, and it was like, "Hey, this is his mom. Like, are you Indy?" And
Oh,
I'm like, "What the
wow.
fuck's,
Very
dude?"
detailed.
It was
jeez.
insanely lucid, and
Holy shit.
it was not a good time, and I remember having to announce it to, like, crypto Twitter and, like, all
Oh,
that, and it was, like it wasn't, like, scary, you know what I mean? But it was definitely I would call that a nightmare because that was a very shitty
Yeah.
a
situation I have to
jarring.
deal with. I woke up and I was like, "Thank fuck that's over, dude." You know? And then I, like, went to Twitter, I was like, "Mugen hasn't posted in 18 hours, what the fuck's going
What the
on?"
fuck is happening?
And then
Where
he,
is he?
right, and then the GMCT tweet comes, I'm like, "Alright, okay, we're good, we're chilling." But yeah, I used to lucid dream a lot. I think lucid dreaming is really cool, and whenever it happens, it's a very interesting experience.
Yeah.
What about you?
I mean, I don't know if I have any that are surprising. Like, it's like poetry was like the way I had like an entrance into the space here.
Yeah,
But I guess I mean, for like 10 years, I wrote a lot more than that. I used to write like a lot of like postmodernist fiction and like short stories and novellas, and like I built up like a pretty like sizable library of it. And so I'd say like that, or like I collect books. Like that's always been ever since I was a kid. My dad's a professor and a big book collector, and so like my great joy is like hunting for rare first editions and like books from my collection. And like the room I'm in right now is just like has all of my like most beautiful favorite old books in them. So yeah, I would say, I
nice.
mean, but that's like a nerd ass fucking like word cell hobby, you know what I mean? So it's like
Uh,
I don't know if that qualifies as surprising. Like I wish I had something cool. It's like, yeah, I actually did like MMA would probably be my thing, like, but no,
Yeah,
it's just
right?
like it's,
I was gonna say,
just another like depressed like internet loser,
yeah,
you
almost even have
know.
kind of the glasses,
I was just gonna
the
say,
library, and yeah, the
Yeah, this
library
is like
dweller
very
attire.
fitting.
Foxboy Librarian, yeah,
This is not dissimilar from a very strong period of my personal fashion during some eras of my life as a
I
younger
believe
man.
it. I believe
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Like, what do the kids call it now from Tumblr? Tumblr, like a dark academia. There was like some
Oh my
very
god.
cringe, like very, yeah, a
Oh
lot of
man.
cardigans, a lot of ties every day.
I love it.
Like, yeah, it was a really profoundly awful look. And profoundly insufferable type of person, like trying to talk to somebody at a party, being like, "Oh, interesting. Do you read a lot of Mishima?" And it's
Yeah,
like,
I
no,
am
like
dark
it's like
and
stay away
brooding.
from me. I'm trying to play some fucking beer pong.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely cringe to look back on now.
I think dark academia is one of the weirdest tags I've ever searched on Tumblr. But
Yeah,
it is also the only one that isn't completely overrun by, like, K-pop
Oh
fanfic.
yeah.
I don't know what it is, but you can't search a single thing on Tumblr nowadays without running into like, it's just all fanfic, there's nothing
because they
else.
see the
Well, all
other
the porn's
fandoms as
gone, so
competition, so you
Yeah,
gotta like
eh
bomb it out.
right.
Here's a good one. What is one of your favorite things to eat? Like, do you have like something that you like to cook, or like something in particular that's just like your absolute favorite food?
broad category, specific dish, however you wanna.
I cook a lot of Mediterranean,
Hey,
specifically
okay.
Greek food, yeah. I just actually gave, my moussaka recipe to a few people. Um, it is very long. It's a very it's not a difficult dish, but it is a demanding dish. And it takes like It could take you 3 to 4 hours if you're, like, slow
Yeah.
with it, if you're not, like if you don't know how to just, like, bang it out real quick. Um, it used to be that I could make them in, like I could probably whip them up in, like, an hour. But I just don't have the kitchen space for that right now. It takes a lot of dishes too. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of prep. It's so funny.
yeah.
That's like my wife's like area of specialty in cooking, like is Greek food, and her moussaka is like something she made early on. So I feel like I have like no facility with cooking it, but I feel like I have a great fondness for that style of food.
Yeah, and moussaka is one of those dishes where it does introduce that fondness. I think it's a great dish, and even in my recipe, I wrote that like it was kind of cheesy, but I wrote that things that it pairs well with. I wrote like the different types of red acidic wines that it pairs well with, a couple different Greek desserts that it pairs well with, and then at the very bottom it says it pairs well with somebody that you care about to just like sit down and share a bite with and laugh with, because
Oh,
I think it's a great dish to it's a casserole, right? So it's a great dish. You
Yeah.
make plenty of it. There's always more to be had, and everybody gets like sleepy and wants to take a nap afterwards. Just good vibes all around. But yeah, Greek
I
food
am like
for sure,
such a sucker for that like cringe corny shit. Like that
dude.
really does
Same.
it for me. I it like gets me every single time.
I think that embracing the corniness in certain aspects is super important, because that's like if you look at like what is the root of like most tradition in the world is
Yeah.
probably like something some corny motherfucker did one time, and then people repeated, right? So like
Do not stop cringing. Kill the part of yourself that cringes.
mhm.
exactly, exactly. So I think that corniness is definitely something that's to be embraced. I think that like you know I think it's something worth pursuing. Sharing experiences with people. That's something that I'm very big on. Um, even if it's just like digital, right? Like shared experiences like this that we're doing here. This is great. People are going to listen to this later. Hopefully, they don't think I sound like too stupid. Hopefully, they're able to listen and get a laugh and have fun, but it's an experience that we're able to produce for others to enjoy. I love shit like that. And you get that a lot with cooking, which next to going outside and touching grass, cooking is by far, I would say, my number one. Well, it's my number two, I guess. Going outside is
I
my number
think
one, but yeah.
there's like a real pernicious part of the like stay at home and code or whatever, like internet withdrawal thing, that it's just like you would be so much happier if you just ate nice
Yeah.
food that you made for yourself. And if
Hmm.
you had this shared experience of like having a meal with somebody instead of like,
Yep.
yeah, glorifying like eating terrible food that doesn't make you feel good.
Well, and
Yeah.
who was
And
it? Or I was gonna say I don't remember on the timeline, but it was like, oh yeah, it's the bear market. Like, all right, CT people start posting about like your outdoor or other like hobbies and
yeah.
stuff, and seeing people like the bug pictures are going outside or people's gardens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah. I
funniest one of
think
that
that,
was
go
Anon
ahead.
posting his indoor like shrimp farm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, this is a side hustle I've never brought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still don't know if that was real or not, but I
I
think
want I hey, I want to believe. I
I want
actually,
to believe
what it,
too. I also
Yeah.
want to believe. We should ask him how it's doing.
I
Just
bet
like,
it's printing.
yeah, it's got to be. It's got to be. What is the impact of inflation on your shrimp farm? um,
How
damn,
I
I
will
was just
never
gonna say something.
economically recover from my investment in shrimp farming.
Damn, what was I just about to say? Something along the lines of the top. Oh, with VR, yeah. So yes, with the whole like, I for some reason the whole live your life through the headset and like
Hmm.
you will go to school in the headset, you will go shopping in the virtual mall and hang out with your friends in the headset, despite the fact that we're doing it right now, and I think this is great. I think that as like a as like a VR centric future, that idea makes me like deeply uncomfortable. I
Yeah.
think, and it's for that reason that I like AR a lot more. Like, I think that the world is just w- insanely beautiful. It's like impossibly beautiful. The world and just the universe in general that we live in, and so like, I think that being able to augment it is the better solution for me personally anyway than to retreat into a different world. I mean, I definitely I find VR very fun. Once it gets set up, I think that getting into it is a major pain in the ass. Um, at least it has been for me. But um, and I think it's great. Like I was able to spend 5 hours hanging out with Miyuki after he tweeted something like, "I realized all my friends are a 400 by 400 pixel on my screen. And like
Yeah.
I literally that night I messaged him because we had talked about like hanging out in VR before, like playing video games together. But I mean, he's like, you know, north of 12 hours ahead of me, right? And so the timing is very difficult to get right. So I ended up staying up till 4 in the morning, and we were able to hang out in this same world and a couple of other different places. And I definitely wouldn't give that up for anything, the ability to do that. But I think the idea of just like isolating entirely in VR and like
Mhm.
metaverse in general makes me deeply uncomfortable. I think that augmenting the world that we have, making the world that we have better, that is a much more appealing idea to me. And like I said, you know, I'm an optimist. I'm an unabashed optimist. I don't care how much it bothers people. I don't give a fuck what the empirical data says that we should think and feel, and everything's, you know, this and that. I don't care. Like I think that when people worry about things like that, it makes me laugh because it's like, why are we even here? You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
whole premise of everything as it is absurd, and it feels like people that are like, you have to be unhappy, you have to be recognizing how bad it is, and you have to know it's going to get worse. I feel like you're racing to an understanding of something that is inherently not able to be understood, and it's almost like
Completely.
it's like cute in like a naive way. You know, it's much harder, I think, to be optimistic about the state of things. And there are definitely times where like something will happen and I'm like, I don't know how this gets better. I recognize that it definitely keeps getting worse. I still believe it is going to be better in the future. I just don't have the answer. But I think it's a lot harder to look at that and say, I still have faith that it's going to be better in the future. Because, you know, it's easy to be like smug and like, yeah, it's fucked and it's going to stay fucked. Right. And it's going to get
Yeah,
more
yeah, yeah.
fucked. And here's what my little study says we're fucked.
There
Right?
is
And if you
that
think
real
if you're happy, I'm
juvenile
gonna be like,
nihilism,
yeah.
that yeah, everyone loves it, and acting like it's so enlightened to be like,
Oh, it's the
everything's
fucking
terrible.
worst.
Yeah, and it's like I actually like I'm sorry, the indomitable human spirit, I think holds up much more true.
Yeah, like you're racing to nowhere in particular, and you feel very smart about it, and that's good for you. But man, just shut the fuck up, you know?
Yeah,
Get off my
posture check,
timeline,
drink some
dude.
water.
Yeah, I've muted a couple people that are like that. At least in like just things that recurringly pop up on my timeline or like keywords, you know what I mean, that people just debate endlessly. And it's just like, I don't have time for this, you know. I don't have time for this. Like the other day when everybody was arguing about like genetic determinism, which
Oh
Jesus
my
fucking
God,
Christ,
Oh
right?
Jesus
boy.
Christ!
Yeah, so
Like an
everybody was
edge lord
arguing.
hour on the
Yeah, so
timeline.
everybody's arguing about genetic determinism, and like Lawrence posted, the real lesson here is like the next time that Indy gets excited about something AI can do, let's
Yeah.
all shut him down. And I was like, no, dude, the real lesson here is that everybody spent the day arguing, and I spent 6 hours in my pool and got 90 minutes of exercise and
Yeah,
6 hours of sunlight. Like,
So who's
you
laughing now? Like
exactly. It's like, you know, and that was very annoying because it's like that was I expressed an optimist opinion, of course, and so we have to whip out the studies and the empirical data why I shouldn't be happy and all, but you know, but yeah, I think the lesson there is just go outside more, you know, do things that make you happy for sure, because there people will give you a million reasons to be upset and a million reasons to like think and convince yourself that everything's going to get worse. And I think that if you look at like the state of the world, it's very easy to get stuck in like a pessimist mindset. Like
totally.
you can't affect like corruption at like the highest levels of corporate America, right? But you can manage things locally. So if you more localize your influence and you focus on the things you have impact on and just remain optimistic about the rest while still doing what you can to like have a better world, I think it's a much better way to be than just like, yeah, it's fucked.
concept of a circle of control. What is within your circle of control
Yeah.
influence? And then
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I
Yeah,
definitely, when I
and
was like 17, you know, I used to be very, very angry at the world, and I can't say that I am anymore. And I'm definitely, I would much rather it be this way, you know.
yeah, and I think it's a process of maturing, like V said, like this fear of control, like the understanding that you can control yourself to some
Yeah,
extent, right? And then I think that is like that you grow up, you realize maybe I don't have to be suckered into this type of dead end thinking about everything being terrible, and actually that maybe
right.
things are not as bad as all that, and at the very least, I don't have to present them that way.
I just
Totally.
rationalized it as I saw the anger and I'm like, I don't have the energy to be angry anymore. Like,
Yeah, it wears you
that's
down
so
fast too.
tiring.
Yeah.
Oh
It's like I'm a
no.
fucking adult. I got shit going.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like
like
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
somewhere I have a
Plus,
water
like,
bottle.
if you're mad about everything, you can't be there for the people that like need you.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like uh one of the things that I'm very like I guess proud of myself, and I don't want to like I guess be like self-congratulatory over it or whatever, but being able to be to provide like a healthier perspective to people that are closer to
Mm,
me, I think is something that I value a lot. I know a lot of my friends, I've got like probably a small handful of people that I've met through crypto Twitter that I would consider family at this point, or something like close to family anyway. Um, and I've, being able to be there for them and being able to help them through the shit that they're going through. I don't think that's something I would be capable of if I had a negative mindset about everything, or just like a very cold, like, here's what the numbers say type mindset. I think being able to to really believe in that and speak that to other people, to be able to like convince them and show them a different perspective to look at their situation. Like, that's not something I would ever give up for the sake of being like a realist, or whatever, enlightened, if you will.
Yeah. I was gonna comment on the your perspective on VR. I am definitely very much a VR proponent.
Totally.
But I think I'm a proponent from the perspective of using it as an option or choice. My mom harped on me. It's like, okay, you can't go to the Grand Canyon in VR and say
Right.
it's the same thing as the real thing. I was like, having done both, I have been to the Grand Canyon and in both VR and it's like, yes, obviously there are things, at least with current tech, that don't carry over. The experience is not the
Mhm.
same. But I mean, it's one of those advantages, disadvantages, and evaluating it for yourself. Like, I can
For
go at
sure.
any time, you
Yeah,
know?
there are some really beautiful things you can see in VR. There are some really amazing worlds that I've hopped across, and I've just like sat there like, holy shit, dude, this is crazy. And those are things
I
you
mean, I
just
cried in
genuinely
the Ghibli
cannot see.
world,
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I had an
Right.
intense emotional reaction, and like, even though through V, like, was very aware of VR, until I, like, really experienced it for myself, I did have kind of a dismissive mindset. I was like, "Well, I'm not, who cares?" But then again,
Yeah.
that is a weird stance to take when, like, I don't know, I like cry at anime all the time, or like video games have made me feel
Yeah.
something, or like a
Yeah.
painting has made me feel something. It's like, yeah, what about this other medium makes people feel so attacked that they have to be like, well, there's no inherent value there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, I would posit that those people haven't like fucked with someone's cat ears before in VR. It's not until you do that that you really understand just like how
I know what you're doing.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's kind of crazy, and it's
Yeah.
like it's like a simple thing, but when you're like close to somebody and you're interacting with somebody, you're not physically touching them, but you're able to like interact with what they're presenting as themselves. I think it's definitely pretty powerful. I think there's a lot of value in it for sure. I just don't want to, like, some people will sell it as like, we're going to spend the rest of our lives like in a dark room
Yeah.
with the
In the
headset strapped to
Matrix.
your face. Like,
Yep.
you've seen the picture of the guy that's like laying on the dirty bed, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
he's like leaning up against the wall, he's got his headset strapped on. It's like there are some people that will dead ass look at you and say like, that's where we're headed. It's like, shut the
And
Oh.
fuck
people who
up, man.
don't see a big problem, yeah, it's no different than a spaceship escape from a dying planet, right? Like, it is
Yeah.
it
Right.
is pure escapism thing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So, and I think it's like maybe it's just like an inherent. I don't want to be arrogant enough to say like it's better or worse. It's an option, and there are
Yeah.
pros and cons, and
And there's nothing
everyone
wrong
has
with
to
liking it.
evaluate it for themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with preferring it either. I mean, I can also recognize that there's a million other reasons why somebody would prefer to be in VR over real life. I totally get that too. This especially goes back to like the gender identity and expression thing. You know what I mean? It's a lot easier to do in VR than it is to do in real life. So that's one of those things that I have I guess, the fortune to not have to worry about that. But I can get why, if somebody was dealing with that, they would want to, they would prefer being in VR rather than going out to fucking be around a bunch of people that are, they can't control that environment and what have you.
Yeah. Oh, I can finally be the big titty goth anime girlfriend.
I mean, who doesn't want that? You know, who doesn't feel that every day of their life? Speaking of anime girlfriend, this is the question that historically has separated what I'm going to call LARPs from real ones,
Oh boy.
which is, Indy, what is your favorite anime of all time?
My favorite anime of all time. If I said the real one, I think it would dox me.
What? No way.
Yeah. Yeah. Shit. I guess without the real one, what the fuck do I pick? Now I have to pick something that sounds cool enough, don't I?
No, we promise we would edit out the real answer.
Let's see. Yeah, I would have to say, like, when you consider like emotional depth and like artistic expression, I would have to say that like Dragon Ball Z is like, it doesn't get. No, not buying it.
I was
like
saying
really,
nothing. I was
like, wait.
You guys got perfectly still. You guys were like
literally, there was a moment where I feel like Vee and I are generally pretty in sync, where I'm sure like the same like thought current went between us and being like, is this
it's like,
yeah, no, I'm just joking. I'm kidding. I do love Dragon Ball Z, but I don't think it's like the
did
greatest.
just talk about Dragon Ball music in the DMs recently, so I was like, you laid the breadcrumbs.
Yeah, I am. Oh shit, dude! The other thing that I was going to bring up. Let me bring it up after this. Yeah, I'm a Faulkner score maxi. Definitely.
It's such a bizarre. I mean, I understand it. I get it. I can respect it. I just can't meet you there. You know, I can't be there with you.
You have to remember what it was like to be watching Adult Swim, Toonami rather. You have to remember what it was like to be watching Toonami and like as a young like American kid, like hearing like some rock and roll, like the guitars, you know what I mean, electric guitars, and like the, you know, you just don't get that in the other score. And I feel like if it had stayed a story about mysticism,
Totally.
like Dragon Ball, then that score would have made sense. But Dragon Ball Z was like pure shonen, like just action, and I feel like the Faulkner score captures that so much better.
Just dudes.
Not that I
fighting
want to
dudes,
like debate
yeah.
it, obviously, but yeah, I love the Faulkner score for sure.
We just gotta find. We gotta now. This is like going to be a great debate for the future. We'll just find someone to come on and just like vehemently argue with you, like someone who's just so pissed about it.
We just talked about don't do internet debates.
It gets crazier too because there's certain cuts of Dragon Ball that are like better than the others, and there's certain studios that have done recasts and like voice animations and voice acting. So like my like favorite presentation of Dragon Ball Z is probably one cut from one studio, one recording from I'm about to drop something on, it's gonna piss you off probably. One recording from one studio, and then the Faulkner score. And now on that note, I prefer dubbed to subbed most of the time. Yeah. Yeah, it is what it is.
That is.
It is what it is.
This is, we've said before, this is a comfy show. This is about like meeting people and like connecting with people. But honestly, that's fucking insane.
You come into our house and you say such.
This is like,
oh man.
This is like one. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna try.
I do prefer manga over anime, if that counts.
Sure.
Ayo,
right.
I can get behind with that.
I totally. But okay.
If it makes you feel better, my anime knowledge is severely lacking. Oh no, that doesn't help.
That's fine. You're not the one under the gun here. You're not the one who just walked into a bar and shot a fucking revolver in the air like it's like some Wild West thing, and you think it's all going to go back to normal. The piano is stopped in the corner. The bartender just dropped a glass. This is okay. I could see, I guess, like Cowboy Bebop, Samurai Champloo, original dubs, and like, oh man, I have such a strong cringe reaction to the American voices. And I saw a great tweet about this, which is like, it's not that American voices are the cringe part of anime, it's that anime dialogue is cringe. And if you hear it in your own language, you're aware of how cringe it is. And in Japanese, like, this guy sounds so cool right now as he's
That's
talking
probably
about
why I
it.
don't watch as much anime as other people, because holy fuck is the dialogue typically very bad,
Yeah,
Yeah.
right?
very
And so
rough.
it's like
Wow.
I yeah. So don't get me wrong, like I'll listen to subbed anime, but like maybe it's an ADHD thing. It's probably undiagnosed. I don't know for sure that I
Yeah.
have that, but it would make sense. But like it's hard to focus on the subtitles the whole
It's
time.
gotten worse over time, I think, for me as well. Like, I just have such a hard time, like, actually doing that. And I think that's
Yeah.
versus like manga, I can sit down and read a whole series in like a day if I feel, if I clicked in. Damn, that's like a big shocker. I feel like someone just like, I don't know, poured ice water down my shirt.
I've
Like, I
also
just,
never seen the anime that Indy's original art comes from. But I think that's fair. It's like pretty obscure, I think.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's probably fair.
Yeah. But yeah,
Only a
so
slight LARP.
Slightly.
the other thing I was gonna say was you brought up Gaia Online.
Wow. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I spent a
I,
lot of time on that as a kid.
yeah. I,
Yeah, and it was
I
you actually mentioned like begging your mom for money to get like the gold,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that
I remember when she bought me the lunar scythe,
oh
and
hell
I
yeah.
I was
Yep.
like, and there was no like game element. I was just like, this is such a cool thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised there's not more Gaia Online discourse. Like everyone talks about RuneScape, and I'm like, I think
Yeah.
the real ones, the real weeb shit, it came
Mhm.
from Gaia Online.
Yeah, I posted my old Gaia avatar once, and it got nobody interacted with it. Like 2
Oh
people
my
liked
god.
it.
I
Yeah,
wonder if
and
I can
I like
still log in.
I definitely can. I logged in the other day, just to check it out, see what's going on. I think inflation, oddly enough, like destroyed the economy there. Like
Yeah.
there's a currency called platinum because of course that's what you do. You go from gold to platinum eventually. Um, but like man, I remember when I was a kid, like the OMG hat was like the thing to have, you know?
Like it's like falling back through time. It's like what is it? It's like Proust with the Madeleines. Like you've just sent me back decades.
You know, in
Did you ever play Gaia
2003,
Online?
Very not extensively. I definitely between
Okay.
the two, I definitely fall more the RuneScape. Like that was
as do
Yeah.
I. I went from Gaia to RuneScape, but I spent a
Oh,
Maple Story
long
very,
and other
very
kinds of. But
interesting.
yeah,
yeah, I spent a long time on Gaia and Gaia Online, and both Gaia Online, RuneScape, and 4chan probably impacted my life like a shitload. And it all
I mean, there's
starts
the beautiful brain poison right there. That
yeah.
trifecta,
Yeah.
you're shot. You would be, yeah. I
There's no
sometimes think
hope.
I'm like, I would be so well adjusted and normal.
Yeah, man. I mean, I remember like talk about parasocial relationships. Like I thought Locke back in the day and Lanzer were like the coolest motherfuckers,
Wow.
dude. Yeah, man.
Wow.
Yeah. I thought they were the coolest
Um,
people, and I never knew. I don't know anything about them still. I could probably find a picture of them if I looked online, but I just don't want to, you know?
I
you've moved
am
on kind of from that.
Yeah.
in
Well,
a
I don't want to ruin
parasocial
the
moment.
I don't want to ruin the image of them that I have in my head. Like Locke and Lanzer were like so important to Gaia at the time. And they were like,
Wow.
whenever they posted, it was like, yo, there's a new fucking Locke post. Like Locke is so cool. Who is he?
Something, yeah, big news. Big news on the streets. I got to tell all my other internet friends.
Yeah. Crazy times, like
Man,
hanging out in the town square and everything, running around and shit. That was such a good
yeah, when
time.
they made the first like actual graphical interface
Hmm.
was like one of those moments I was like, this is incredible. And I was so like obsessed with dot hack as a kid, like
Yeah.
just like to the core. My username on everything was like Balmung. Like I have all this, still have all this like dot hack shit. Like I
Right.
love, and like I was like, this is as close as I'm gonna get to being in the world. Like I have my avatar and like I walk around. Like yeah, I mean, it's such a clear line to like who I am as a person is Gaia Online,
Yep.
which is so shameful. I'm sure there are like cringe like RP threads out there
Oh my
playing as like an
god, dude.
OC, like just like if someone really like no information I feel like could have hurt me as an adult. Like I would not be embarrassed, like nothing, nothing
Except for
would
your Gaia
shatter my
comments.
Yeah.
that would
Destroy.
obliterate me.
Same.
That would undo me as a person. Everyone I know would lose respect for me. Like there'd be no coming back.
Yeah, man.
There'd
I
be
was
no
like
coming back.
11 years old, like participating in
Yeah.
these fucking RP threads and shit, man. And this shit,
Yeah,
it was
you'd be
crazy. It
like
was a weird
11 years
time.
old, like typing about boobs in a fantasy setting. Like, God,
It'd probably be me.
Yeah,
and,
actually, probably for the sake of the world, Gaia Online should be wiped from the internet.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, totally. I'm surprised it's still around. They are definitely, you go there, you can tell they're definitely like dying. But like the Chatterbox is still going. Like there's still new threads and coming up on the Chatterbox. People still largely. I was talking to this about somebody the other day. People act the same exact way. If you sign in and
a
you go to the
better time.
Chatterbox, people still have like their signatures and their little random LOLXD phrase in their signatures. They still have
I
like some
miss
people
the
have.
signature box in
Yeah.
life so much. That was
Yeah.
the best. If you
Yep.
were like sick with like the markdown or whatever, and you
Uh-huh.
just had like a great signature box, and you did like a bad
You'd like
Photoshop.
center it and yeah, oh
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Center
that
aligned.
is like a lost art. You know,
Totally. Totally. Yeah, absolutely. No, that was a wild time. And it was
I feel like we should do a bonus featurette of this episode now, where we log on and show our Gaia
oh
accounts.
boy.
Oh
Okay. I
goodness.
might have to sanitize some things, but
Yeah, I literally, the minute this is done, I just like the urge to log on. I
mean,
have to see. I can like remember so clearly.
like it was such a big part of my life. Like I shit you not. My late stepfather had an account. My mom had an account. My brother
Yeah.
had an account.
Oh, wow.
Yep. My
Yeah.
whole family had it. My mom was like, I got to spend time with my two
Exactly.
little weeb sons. So
Yeah.
I guess I'm gonna. Yeah, she had like a Neopets account as well.
Neopets would have been
almost-
my. That was my.
Yeah.
That was a
Yeah.
big one. I
Did
almost
you ever
got,
do orbits?
No.
Like I think that was the name for it. It was like Cartoon Network's like little trading card game where you could trade like
Oh.
stickers and shit.
I feel
I
like
posted
very
about that one
briefly.
time too, and people were like, "Whoa,
Not
dude!"
that, but the best thing that ever happened was when they did that Toonami game where like the ship was in trouble and you had to like help Tom
Oh
from
hell
Toonami.
yeah!
Oh
and they-
yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
and,
it was.
cool, and like the progress every week like changed how I remember
Uh-huh.
being a kid and being like, this is the coolest shit of all.
That was like
time.
the primitive like Fortnite
Or augmented
concert.
reality.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
it was
like
like
where
ARG, like yeah, so crazy.
yeah.
I almost got I don't want to say sex trafficked, but I almost fell
Okay.
prey to it's a good face. I was maybe like 15 or 16. I was in a bar in New York on New Year's, and I ended up talking to this guy who gave me this really cool pair of like glow in the dark skeleton gloves. And I was like, trying to make conversation. I don't know why I was there. And he was like, yeah, I work for Neopets. And I'm like, oh, my account got locked many years ago. He's like, I'll unlock it for you. Like, give me your info. And
Oh,
in
boy.
retrospect, I was like, obviously I said no, but I'm like, what a great pitch to like try and abduct like a teenager. I was like, I would have fallen for it
Jesus.
immediately.
Hey, I've got a free paintbrush in my van.
I mean,
I,
literally, I was like, oh yeah, I can get my Neopets back.
Yeah. My grandma actually lived next to a guy whose wife discovered that he was into some pretty fucked up shit. For some individuals that were obviously, he was preying on people that were way too young, and
Nice.
his job, he was like the head of marketing at Monster, like the energy drink. And it's like,
Oh,
jeez.
jeez.
Yeah, so it's like, damn, you really picked that one pretty carefully, didn't you?
That's like, I mean, yeah, it's like that the lewd monster thing of like the Monster can girl be like, hey kid, you want to have a monster? That guy saw that and he was like, shit,
Yeah.
say less.
Yeah. Now we've got the Monster can of Stolfo.
Oh yeah, well, I mean,
Oh, man.
the world is healing itself. God, I want to do Gaia Online. So can we bring back like signatures on our tweets? Like
There
I'm
could
gonna
probably
start
be
doing
like
a dashed line
Yeah,
underneath
some
the
sort
tweet.
of.
I'm gonna start participating in protocol governance, and I'm gonna start
Mhm.
adding signatures to my posts and just not explain anything about it.
Nice.
Yeah, just like 3 different colors, like
Yeah.
a Photoshop of Full Metal Alchemist, just like you have
100%.
like a perfect form sig.
Yep.
Yep.
Wow. Wow, that sent us like down. I'm honestly reeling from the guy online.
Such a rabbit hole.
But we usually ask like, is there anyone you want to shout out? Like, do you have a favorite tweeter, or do you have like something you're working on that you want to shout out? Do you have anything you want to shill or plug, or just someone that you want to
There
give
are-
like, huge love to?
Yes, I do, and I wrote a list. Let me get my phone.
Oh, he came prepared.
Yeah, I came
Holy
prepared.
cow.
Hold on,
It's the
I'm
first
looking at
episode that's
this.
come that prepared.
Let me just say,
I-
you're more prepared than we are. Probably.
I listened
Although,
to all of
to
the
be
just about
fair-
all of the ones back before I did
Oh,
this.
really?
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
V, we did. It wasn't all for nothing. You know?
Let's see. So I have to give a shout out to Wraith, Twitter user. People probably seen them around in the community. I have to give a shout out to Wraith. I'm very close with Wraith. Appreciate them very much. I have to give a shout out, obviously, to Mugen. Mugen is like a brother to me. I cannot say enough about how awesome of a person he is. And he should definitely have way more followers than I do. It's criminal. So follow Mugen Trader if you haven't already. I think he's got like almost 6,000 followers. He should definitely have something like 60,000. Definitely a shout out to Miyuki. Miyuki's another one that's like family to me. I love Miyuki a shitload. And one day hope that, we'll be able to hang out, not in VR and not, near 20 hours apart. I would say that there is, let me get my list open again. This shit fucking closed on me.
I mean, those are already such good shout outs.
Yeah, those three, man. I love those three very much, like endlessly. And I would do anything for any one of them. Christine Kim and Tim Bako. Both of them give such great all core devs recaps for the Ethereum calls. I would say Christine, Kim, and Tim Bako, like if you're not following them, check them out. It's probably going to be a little bit quieter after the merge happens because it's not like, you're not listening to every call like with this great anticipation, at least probably until like 48, 44 comes along and is like ready to be implemented. But their recaps for the ACDs are just so good. I would say if you give any kind of a shit about like what's going on in Ethereum, you should definitely follow them, check them out. And let's see, probably going to butcher the pronunciation on this, but Polania. We all follow Polania, but I wanted to give him a shout out anyway. And I do totally feel the same way he does in that talking about rollups is just not fun anymore. And so that is why like I struggle to balance like shit posting with like technical posting, because it's like before when rollups were a lesser explored topic, you could give your opinion on them and then shit post about femboys or whatever for like a day or two, and then like post another thing about rollups, and people are like, okay, this guy still knows stuff. Now I don't know what the fuck to talk about. Rollups just aren't that interesting. It's like a hurry up and wait situation. So I definitely sympathize with him, but I also appreciate him greatly. And then Ethereum cat herders. Ethereum cat herders is another great way to keep up with the developments that are going on in Ethereum. I have that account. It's the only account that I have on notifications. Actually, I have Mugen on notifications too. But that is the only account. That is the account that I've had on notifications for the longest. And if you have like any questions, anything that's going on with any EIP or any call or whatever, the Ethereum cat herders account has like got you covered. It's going to retweet that stuff. It's going to post about what's going on. I think it's great. And then shout out to you two for hosting me here.
We never expect the shout out, but when it comes, we do love it.
I was gonna say
And
you
so,
kind of because like a follow would be like who's the one person that like they post or you have them on notifications immediately, like you see the post they immediately light up. I'm guessing Mugen from what you, but
yeah, definitely.
Okay.
100%. That is a person we talk for like hours on any given day for sure.
He's such a goddamn sweetie.
Yeah, totally.
A real treasure of the community.
Yeah.
And very sorry about that nightmare, because that would be a nightmare for any of us.
Yeah, right. Like, man, what the fuck was happening there? Like,
that would be a day of mourning on a very specific area of CT.
Well,
I went like I talked to him the entire day afterward, and I didn't bring it up. And then I was like, by the way, this happened, and he was like, what the fuck? I'm sorry. He's like, I'm like, I'm okay now. I definitely wasn't okay when I woke up. Like I was like fucked up.
If anything, maybe it's just like a subconscious, like, here's how much you care for this person.
That's just what I chose to take it as.
Yeah.
That's what I chose to take it as. I was like, hey man, I fucking appreciate you. I just hope you know that. I thought you died for a second, and that was really not fun.
Oh man.
Well, just to kind of like return the shout out, like we're so happy you're here. Like in particular, like you and Carnation are the first people I really met on crypto Twitter. And it does kind of feel like one of those great like full circle moments, like personally,
Totally.
like, getting to when I still had like, I don't know, like 100 followers, like you two were the
Right.
first people I talked to and like wrote poetry with and like went back and forth doing memes with. So yeah, it's just I'm very grateful that you joined us and were so like candid and open and, you know, yeah, I don't know. It just feels it's fun also that it's my first VR episode. I know it's old hat to V, but like it
Yeah.
feels very yeah, I don't know. Like it's very like emotionally fulfilling that we get to be in this like virtual space together and
Totally.
talking after all this time.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely glad we did this. I was literally I spent no shit all day yesterday fucking around with this avatar, man, and I was trying to get it perfect, and like there's a reason my hair is not moving. I had whole lot of problems. I was gonna get my little fucking hoodie strings moving
Yeah.
and everything, make animate it as much as possible. You guys are over here with your hair and your ears
Well,
flopping
Well, I was
around
gonna
and
say
shit.
that the hoodie strings not moving totally ruins the immersion for me, So
Exactly,
like
okay,
exactly.
yeah, that's
That's
the sticking point.
that was
Well,
my
and
big concern,
and
and
I
I
feel
like
kind of bad for like springing it on you because I just on a whim because I did the Nemu
yeah.
one, and
Let the
then
record show. She gave me about like 2 days notice to say, hey, let's do it in VR. And I was like, all right, I'll try. Let's do this.
I think I
well,
got my
okay,
headset literally 2 days ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I was like, if
Oh,
you
so it's my fault.
wanted, yes, I'm passing blame to you. I was like, well, you have your headset, so why not?
Yeah, so I was gonna say, like, there was like a part of me that was like, do I just tell them like, let's do it in VR, but not record the video, or like, let's just do it over call because like I can't get this thing right,
I was
and like,
expecting a no, so the fact you
well,
said
due
yes,
to
I was
like,
like,
there's like some childhood shit that's like, if I'm not physically like representing myself in like the
Mm,
way that I feel comfortable with, it's like I was telling you, it's like a form of dysmorphia almost.
yeah.
Like if I'm not wearing something that, and obviously this doesn't, like, I don't have purple hair. I have like short, medium brown hair and like a long beard, or like it's like long enough. It's not super long, you know what I mean? But it's like very big and fluffy beard, and like I definitely don't look like Indy in real life, right? But there is no VR avatar that looks close enough like me to where I don't get that weird, uncomfortable feeling. So I figured, fuck
Mm-hmm.
it, I'll just make Indy, and that's just what I'll just own that.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was a trip. I legit spent all day from like 11 a.m. to like 2 a.m. trying to mess around with this avatar to get it like production ready, right? So that I could come in here like
Yeah.
professional and like have the floppy hair too and shit. I
Oh,
was
I got.
almost gonna say like, we should probably just not do this, but I'm glad that we did.
Oh
Me
man,
too.
there's
And
something
it,
to. Oh, I was gonna say.
no, I was just gonna be like, obviously it's not perfect. I'm this bunny boy instead of my usual beautiful fox persona. I'm like I got like the cuffed up pants and like the dumb face. So it's like, yeah, I get it. And never worry. The last thing you have to worry about with this show is professionalism in any way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
or viewers.
Oh,
Wow.
oh, ow. Oh, that explains the shout out. Shout out to Triple. It's a dozen
it's funny
viewers.
'cause, like, I make that joke a lot, but like someone else making the joke just makes it so much harder.
It
Oh
comes from a
man.
place of love. A million people are gonna see this one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're
A million
bumping.
people.
Well, yeah, we're trying to get celebrities. That's
Yeah, this is the thing. There's something to be said for like a physical, like using your hands and like a physical presence when you're talking
yeah.
about
Mhm.
expressions. That was part of it too. But I had definitely a few comments. I think what was your tweet? Like you were watching like Avatar videos or whatever, and you posted like one with a bunch of loot options, and I got a couple of messages like,
Oh yeah.
"So what are you going to be doing on this podcast?"
that's like the
surprised-
bonus one. When we make a Patreon, it will be the the things people really want to say. You gotta chill out.
Yeah, you get like access
what
to
I
a
mean?
world with like lewd like NPCs of everybody's avatar and do whatever you want with. That's
Dojima
nice.
Yeah,
You
I
can
mean,
monetize that way.
We can.
Yeah.
people would
I'm-
pay for that.
Yeah.
We have not monetized this shit correctly.
I
Yeah.
have lightly because I have the Dojima futures. I have the ENS. I was like, do I just put it on there and be like, if you like, you could send stuff our way.
Is it just in plain
you know what?
English?
Yeah,
DojimaFutures.eth.
DojimaFutures.eth. Yep.
Send money there. What the fuck are you
Yeah.
doing?
Hey,
Oh,
hey,
If you want more of
hello.
this, send money to
Send money.
DojimaFutures.eth. They appreciate your support. I appreciate your support of them. If you want more people like me coming on to these two lovely people to hear from them, send them money. I probably won't immediately, but send them money.
This is the first time we've ever plugged a money thing, and I love that it was not only so organic, but we didn't have to say it. And usually I ask people if they have any like final shout out or sentiment, but I think that we can all agree that that was it. And that's what Indy thinks about a lot, is that you should probably give me and V money.
Right. Yeah, that's the primary thing on my mind usually.
Oh.
Is whether people are not or are simping over you guys hard enough or not.
Well, you know, as a simp for you, you know, it's all just now a big simp chain.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you know, what is a friendship but a circle jerk between people?
I mean, we talked about like the DAOs and treasury governance, and they're all filling each other's treasuries. We're just all filling each other's simp.
Yeah,
Yeah,
stroking
that's
each
also
other's
called
egos.
IRL
Yeah.
mutuals, and it's like, come on, man. Jokes aside, though, if you do have any like last, you know, thing that you want to direct out there to the world,
last
any
thoughts?
like call to action, mission statement, anything like that, you can use this platform, as you said, of so many viewers to do so.
What I would say, I guess, any kind of call to action that I would broadly give people is to just like think of like what you'd imagine to be a better world and just work toward that. You know, stay positive, be kind to other people, be supportive of other people, be there for your friends. You know, I know it's probably not always fun to like try to be a pillar of support when, you know, dealing with emotions is hard. It's worth it though. It's worth it to have, you know, the people that you care about in a better spot. I would recommend that 10 out of 10 times. So just like, you know, just try to put good into the world and do it for like actual altruistic purposes, right? Don't expect good back all the time. You don't, it's not like don't go tit for tat with people. Just do shit just because. And fucking get some sunlight. God damn it. Go outside. What the fuck?
Please, we're begging you to please.
For the
touch
love
some
of
grass.
God, go outside.
We say this from the VR world. Like go
In the virtual world, but yeah, please.
Yeah, I've had a headset strapped to my, but when I take this off, my whole face is going to be red, and I'm going to have this imprint for the rest of the night. But go outside. Don't be like me.
Don't ever be like Indy.
Yeah.
He's really not like me for real.
He's not like me for not real.
Exactly.
For not.
Well, as our usual closer, thank you again. If anyone out there, you like the show, please like, subscribe, leave us a review and a rating. A special shout out to Dunebug for leaving us a review and DMing me about it.
Cool.
And from now on, we might shout out people when they do that. So please review it. And if you have a story that you want to share, please reach out to us because we'd love to help you share it.
And everyone
come on the
has a story.
podcast.
Yeah,
come on the podcast.
Come on the podcast. Come in the orb.
That was my phone.
Oh.
All right. Well, we'll see y'all next time.